First of all, I'm going to be your manager.
My manager?
Right. Now, considering all the great movies you've done, Colt, you'd be amazed at how many of my friends at school have ever heard of you.
Yeah, how many?
None. Second, you're getting along in years, Colt, and I hate to see you doing these dangerous stunts on your own. So I've thought it over, and I'm willing to pitch in and sort of take over as you pull back and enjoy your golden years.
Golden years?
After you've watched me run the business for a little while, you'll probably be able to take over that part of it, and then I'll move into the limelight.
Let me get this thing straight here. Now, you spent 7 years in school to learn to become a stuntman?
Right. But with me as your partner, we'll both go a lot further because you'll be able to reap the benefits of my long education.
Can you take a punch?
Can I what?
Take a punch. You've seen stuntmen take punches, huh?
Oh, hell, yes. I was on the Yale boxing team for almost a year. In fact, Was that some kind of a test you give stuntmen?
No, that was just me trying to knock your head off.
Well, I'm not the kind to kiss and tell, but I've been seen with fire up. I've never been with anything less than a 9. So fine, I've been on fire with Sally Field, gone fast with a girl named Bo. But somehow they just don't end up as mine. It's a death-defying life I lead. I take my chances. I die for living in the movies and TV. But the hardest thing I ever do is watch my leading ladies kiss some other guy while I'm bandaging my knee. I might fall from a tall building, I might roll a brand new car, 'cause I'm the unknown stuntman that made Redford such a star. I've never spent much time in school, but I've taught ladies plenty. It's true, I hire my body out for pay. Hey, hey, I've gotten burned over Cheryl Teague's, blown up for Raquel Welch. But when I wind up in the hay, it's only hay. Hey, hey, I might jump an open drawbridge or Tarzan from a vine, 'cause I'm the unknown stuntman that makes Eastwood look so fine. They'll never make me president, but I got the best first ladies. Some days I've got 'em as far as the eye can see. Ooh-wee. A morning dive with Jackie Smith, I crash in the night with Cheryl, but in the end they never stay with me. I might fall from a tall building so Burt Reynolds don't get hurt. I might leave a mighty canyon so he can kiss and flirt. While that smooth talker's kissing my girl, I'm just kissing dirt. Yes, I'm the lonely stuntman that made a lover out of Bert.
You ain't gonna make me watch that show again, are you? I ain't got no time for it. Speaking of time, what time is it?
It's PodBlast time!
Yes, it's PodBlast time. I'm your host, Chance Bartels.
We got a good one for you today,
as Steve Harvey would say, and have a very special guest star who will be joining the PodBlast shortly. I'm very honored to have him. He's an actor, writer, director, and wait till you hear about what he's up to these days. He's a businessman. His name is Douglas or Doug Barr. And a lot of people my age and Generation X know him from the action-adventure ABC show The Fall Guy that I talk about a lot on the Podience. I am such a super fan of this old show. And the sad thing is you don't really see it much anymore. However, I have inside information that it's going to be making a comeback on Disney Plus. And that's all I've got to say about that. But not only have you seen him in The Fall Guy, but Doug Barr, after The Fall Guy ended, he was on a show called The Wizard on CBS Primetime. Immediately, right out of the gate, after the cancellation of Fall Guy after 5 seasons, he starred in this show, The Wizard, and then he was on, for a lot of women out there, a show called Designing Women, in which he was acting in front of a live studio audience. So he's going to be joining us in just a little bit. Just some background real quick. The Fall Guy started on ABC, and it ran for 5 full TV seasons, starting on November 4th, 1981, which incidentally is Markie Post's birthday. God rest her soul. She passed away in 2021, sadly. And she was a regular on the show between season 2 and 4. And then Fall Guy ended on May 2nd, 1986 on ABC TV. Then The Wizard started September 9th, 86, and it only ran through July 7th, 1987, and Doug Barr played a character named Alex Jagger. And then after that show ended, and I'll explain what happened. It wasn't that it was a bad show. It had terrible scheduling by CBS up against some stiff competition. I'll talk about that later. So it only lasted 1 year, but then he bounced back strong on Designing Women, as I mentioned, on CBS as Colonel Bill Stiffield from 1987 through 1991 on that show. So he's had a rock-solid, continuous 10 years on big-time network TV. And actually more than 10 years, because before The Fall Guy, Doug starred in a short-lived hour-long sitcom. Usually sitcoms, of course, are half an hour, but it was an hour-long sitcom on ABC about construction workers. And it was titled When the Whistle Blows. And it aired from Friday, March 14th, 1980, until Sunday, July 27th, 1980. Now, that show was stacked up against the CBS powerhouse The Incredible Hulk, Friday nights at 8, which at that time was in its prime, in its 3rd season. So that's why When the Whistle Blows didn't last very long. It's not because the show blew, because it was indeed funny if you look at some clips on YouTube or if you remember it. We'll discuss all of these beloved shows and more that he's worked on in front of and behind the camera, as well as his business ventures outside of show business. Of course, like I said, I'm a fan of his acting on The Fall Guy, which was an action-adventure series. And back in November 2021, The Fall Guy celebrated its 40th anniversary of its debut. But like I said, it hasn't been seen much. It hasn't been in rerun syndication since 1997. It was on the Decades channel in like a weekend marathon, but all they aired primarily was the season 1 DVD releases, in which they took out all the background pop music songs and replaced them with like garage band, nondescript, pretty crummy music instead of the pop songs. And most of the pop songs weren't even by the original artists back then when it originally was on the air in the 80s. So, but you know how music rights are and royalties. It doesn't matter if it's the original version or like a yacht rock type cover. Doesn't matter. Royalties must be paid. And I think 20th Century Fox went cheap, but Disney, with all the resources they have, with the resources behind them, they're going to release it in its entirety at long last. And like I said, it hasn't been seen in regular rerun since 1997, and I have them all on 16 millimeter film, reel-to-reel film with the original music. And so they're fresh in my mind, so I'm at somewhat of a disadvantage over the average television viewer and Generation Xer out there that probably remembers The Fall Guy, who's probably only seen season 1, which I think is on Hulu. By the way, there's a new streaming service, Hulu TV, that debuted, and they have like the Judge Judy channel, and I noticed they're playing like the classic Dallas episodes. It's free. If you have like Pluto TV, for instance, or Roku rather, Roku Ultra, all you have to do is search for IMDb, International Movie Database, but it's IMDb TV. Search for it, and it's free. You just download it, and you can watch it on your TV, and there's a pretty good library of stuff. And I'm sure down the line they're going to charge for it, so you might as well stream it and enjoy it while it's free. So, I think I like the character of Howie Munson on Fall Guy because when I was a kid, I always wanted a big brother. Now, I have a lovely younger sister, and he was very sweet and warm. I have a sweet mom who's a retired school teacher and a very intelligent, wise father. But I always wished I had a big brother. So to me, Howie Munson, the character of Howie Munson, was like a big brother. He was a few years older than me, and I think that's why I liked his character. He was my favorite character on the old Fall Guy show. Although Heather Thomas was on there, who had the best figure of any female on television in the entire decade of the 1980s, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. But like I said, Doug's also a screenwriter and director, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Now, as I wait for him to join us, I've prepared about 30 questions for Doug. And this is going to be a lively, spontaneous interview. And I welcome you to call in with your questions once we get rolling. And I will put on the screen a phone number, and that's your number to call. I'll go ahead and tell it to you now, if you want to write this down. The phone number to call in, not Doug, but the audience member, the person wants to ask a question, call this number, 404-944-0239. That's 404-944-0239. And if you're listening on fistfulofradio.com, I invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Nostalgic, with a C, not nostalgia, Nostalgic Podblast. And you can see some images I'm going to have on the screen of Doug's. I have a lot of publicity stills. Back in 2002, my God, it's been over 20 years since I did this. I flew out to Hollywood, California, and on foot, I walked down Hollywood Boulevard, and I went to every memorabilia store on the Strip and on Hollywood and Vine, and I bought up all of this material, not just Fall Guy stuff, but I bought up scripts. I bought up a lot of still pictures of Doug and Heather and Lee and Marky Post, and I'll show some of those images from my collection. So if you're listening on fistfulofradio.com or on Apple or any of your favorite podcast platforms, you won't be able to see it, but there's a link right there to the YouTube channel. And then, of course, in our Facebook group, which is rapidly growing, the Facebook group is The Nostalgic Podblast. So I'm going to get started here with some clips as we wait for Doug to join us from Fall Guy. These are some of my favorite clips that are audio friendly. They did a couple Western episodes with Roy Rogers, and I love this clip of Roy and his horse Trigger. And poor Howie, he has a little accident on the set when it comes to the horse. Let's just listen to a little bit of a season 2 episode called Happy Trails. And here's Doug Barr fooling around with the horse Trigger. Here we go. Let me get past this annoying ad. Here we go. Let's listen. So Howie pulls out his gun out of his holster. It's a prop gun. Down goes the horse. And he reacts.
Oh my God. I killed a racehorse. I killed Trigger.
He thinks he's killed Trigger.
Not the right backup, man. Your life could be on the line.
Oh, I trust Howie in any emergency.
Sure his nerves won't crack under pressure?
Howie's got ice water in his veins.
Cole, I gotta talk to you.
Hey, on a minute.
No, it won't wait a minute. This is a crisis.
Excuse me, Al.
Ice water, huh?
Kid, what's wrong with you? You look like you've seen a ghost.
Oh, please don't say that. I didn't mean to do it.
Do what? What's wrong with you?
What? I was practicing twirling the pistol. It went off.
So?
So, I shot Trigger.
You shot Trigger.
What am I gonna do, Colt? It must be worth millions. How am I gonna pay it back at $50 a week?
No sense putting it off. We better break it to Roy.
No. Roy's gonna hate me.
Roy doesn't even know that word. Roy! Can we see you over here a minute?
Sure. I shot Trigger. The smartest horse in the movies. The cowboy's best friend.
What's happening?
Howie, he shot Trigger.
It was an accident, I swear it. Can you ever forgive me?
No problem. I'll just have to get another horse.
And then he whistles, Roy Rogers does. And the horse pops up, he's fine.
Hey!
That's his best trick, kid. Playing dead on the sound of a gunshot.
So that's an episode called Happy Trails, and it was the first time that Roy Rogers came in. They had a Western special. And what I liked about Fall Guys, they gave acting work to legends whose careers had kind of fizzled out, like Pat Buttram. Mr. Haney from Green Acres is in that episode, the star of The Virginian, and Doug McClure from The Virginian. Any Western fan out there will know what I'm talking about. But that episode's on YouTube, and unfortunately it's time compressed, so if you have an astute ear, you'll notice that like the music and the voices of the actors sound a little bit sped up, and that's because in the process known as time compression, the frames per second are literally sped up. It's a process in Europe, primarily in the PAL video system, and I can't stand it. But that's from the season 2 DVD release, which was only released in Europe by 20th Century Fox back in 2007. So only seasons 1 and 2 were ever released on home video. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Going to play another quick clip. Now, Doug Barr, the writers occasionally would give him a lot of good material where he could really flex his acting muscles. And there was an episode with his father from season 4. It's called Private Eyes. And I was talking about how they brought certain actors back. Well, Mike Connors was in that, who was Mannix as himself. And the star of, remember Cannon? William Conrad, who was the narrator of Fall Guy. Fall Guy will continue in a moment. And they brought him back as himself. And then the star of Petrocelli in this episode. And they also introduced Colt's father, Bronk. I think that's Doug right now. Yes. Mr. Barr.
Yes, hi, Chance. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. It's so good to hear from you. Oh, man, I have been a fan for so long. I just did a little introduction and played a clip of you in that great scene with the great Roy Rogers where Howie thinks he shot Trigger.
Yes, one of my favorite scenes in all the years that we did the Fall Guy. That was one of my favorite ones, I must say. Partially because of the gag, which was good, but much more importantly because it was with Roy Rogers, who was a hero of mine from my youth.
Excellent, excellent. It's so good to have you here, and I just want to thank Curtis of the Retro Zest podcast. He contacted you on my behalf, requesting an interview, which you graciously granted. So thanks to Curtis, and most importantly, thanks to you for your time, for spending an hour with us tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, I want to start, of course, with the origin of how you got into show business, if I may. How did you get into show business? What was your first big break?
Well, I got into show business actually not quite by accident, but I certainly stumbled into it. It was nothing I wanted to do as a child. I had intended to become a diplomat, thinking I could travel on somebody else's dime that way. Ultimately didn't end up doing that, but I was in Greece with a friend of mine during my college days, the junior year in college. We both bought motorcycles in London and then jumped across on the, there was no channel in those days, so on the ferry to the continent. The goal was to drive all the way around the Mediterranean, and we ran out of money in Thessalonica, northern Greece. We were worn out with the motorcycles. We said, look, we can meet your girlfriend. His high school girlfriend's parents were on a cruise that was going to be in Athens, and we were going to borrow some money from them because we'd really tapped ourselves out. So we put our motorcycles on a coastal freighter, and we're going to ride down and sleep on the deck of the boat or sleep on a beach if we saw a place that we could jump off for a couple of days, because they weren't due to be there for, I think it was like a week. So we did that, and we jumped off on an island about 12 or 13 hours away, and sat in a beautiful little Greek island with whitewashed, buildings there, and having a liter of Coke. I remember this so specifically because it turned out to be a very important moment in my life. And we were sharing a liter of Coke and a box of Ritz crackers, and a beautiful woman, a woman like out of the movies, came from one side street in this fishing village on an island that we barely knew the name of, and crossed the courtyard and disappeared down a side street. And my buddy and I looked at each other and went, oh my God. And pretty soon a couple more came, dressed to the nines, from that same area and went down that same street. So we pooled our money, bought one drink at a bar where they were all gathering, probably a block or two away. And then we mingled, and I ended up meeting a woman who was a model in Paris, and French girl, and he ended up meeting a woman who was from London, and a beautiful woman in her own right. And we sort of hooked up with them and stayed there on this island. It turned out it was Mykonos, which became after that a very kind of hot spot and much more of a tourist place. But in those days, it was Euro trash only, very, very beautiful place. And so we fell in with a very fast crowd, I must say, an international crowd, and stayed there for, I guess, probably about a month. Went back to the villa where my girlfriend was staying, and he went to the villa where his girlfriend was staying. Then we packed him onto our motorcycles. He went back to London with his girlfriend, and I went to Paris with mine. Needed to make some money. She introduced me to her agent, the modeling agent, that will take your picture, do some tests, and we'll get you going. And so I got into the modeling business in Paris, crazily enough, and then went back to college in Washington, D.C., and took the portfolio I put together as a model in those days. I went up to New York, figuring I can make a little bit of money in my junior and senior years in college on the sideline and doing the modeling thing. Realized pretty quickly that if I could talk instead of just stand there, I could make a little more money. And so I started studying acting, and then I realized that I liked doing that. That was fun, and got into the union through commercials, doing commercials, which was an early break. And then ultimately my break into more serious acting work came through a friend of mine named Bill Persky. He wasn't my friend then, but he remains my dear friend to this day. He was a writer and a director, and he was casting a show called Semi-Tough after the film that had been done, the Burt Reynolds film that had been done way back in those days. Nobody probably remembers that anymore, but in any case, they were going to do that as a series, and he was casting that, and it was sort of a semi-sitcom, and I got cast in that, again, kind of through chance, because this is a long story, and I'll get to the chase soon. At any rate, so I was auditioning until I ran into him, auditioned for him, thought it was all done because I didn't hear anything for a couple of weeks, and then I was auditioning for a soap opera. I'd gotten a call back on that one, and the two other guys who got the call back were Christopher Reeves and Jamison Parker, both of whom went on to do other things. Christopher Reeves got the soap opera, but coming out of CBS, I hear my name called, and I turn, and it's Bill Persky, the guy who I had read for it. I said, I guess you probably never cast that show. And he said, well, which way are you walking? And I said, well, I'm going this way. And fortunately, he said, so am I. I later learned that he would have followed me in either direction. Bought me a hot dog and said, I'm going to help you get this show, because they had not yet cast it. And that was sort of the beginning of it.
Well, I have one of those commercials I'm going to play after our interview for Menon, by Menon, the cologne. Which you're at the end of the commercial. I mean, it's more visual, but I'm going to play it for the listener.
Oh, great. That's great. I haven't seen one of my commercials since I made them, I can promise you.
And you mentioned Christopher Reeve. I guess it was Edge of Night. Was that not the soap opera, or do you not recall?
I really don't remember the name of the soap opera. He wasn't on it very long because he went off to do another show that he'd come up with. Fine actor, Chris Reeve. Very nice guy, fine actor.
I thought you would have made a good Superman, actually.
I never had an opportunity to audition for that, unfortunately, but I don't think I could have done it as well as Chris did. So.
Yeah, well, that's very, very nice of you to say. Now, another question. You acted in a 1980s slasher horror movie titled Deadly Blessing, which I've actually never seen it, because I didn't want to see you get hurt. You know, even in make-believe movie land, to this day, I've never seen. Now, I got to ask you, were you the killer? Was your character killed off? Please describe working on that film.
Well, it wasn't just a standard slasher movie. It was actually a Wes Craven movie. Wes Craven became the director best known for doing horror movies. This is probably the worst one he ever made, but nonetheless, it was a cut above in terms of horror movies. It was about a group of a sort of a cult that called themselves Hittites that was sort of modeled on Amish, and it had Ernest Borgnine in it, was a member of the Hittites, and there was a ghost and the whole thing involved with that. But it was a lot of fun to do. Sharon Stone was in it. It was her first acting gig, as I remember. I knew her from New York days, and there she was, showed up on this set in Waxahachie, Texas, and so that was the show. Maren Jensen played my wife. She was, at that point, going out with Don Henley, who hovered around the set all the time worrying about her. And I was squished by a John Deere tractor, probably a third of the way through the movie. But Wes Craven, after I was squished, called and said, could you come back? Because we want you to literally come back as a ghost. And so I
Cool.
I came back and played a ghost of my squished self there, and didn't know exactly how to play a ghost, and I asked him, and he didn't really have much advice, so I just went with the, Marley's ghost in A Christmas Carol and tried to imagine what it'd be like to come back as a ghost. So.
Tough gig. Maren Jensen's boyfriend. Wow. And she's best known for Battlestar Galactica, the original version, among other things. And she retired from acting. Yeah.
Yeah, she retired from acting quite a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so there was a sitcom you did, When the Whistle Blows, which I mentioned before the start of this interview, and that was unusual to me because it was an hour-long sitcom.
Yeah, it wasn't really a sitcom. It was light-hearted action adventure stuff about a group of steelworkers, and so Tim Rosevich was in that, who had played for the Detroit Lions. I think big, wonderful guy. Several other. Phil Brown was in it, and it was a bunch of guys working on steel sites, and they were building a building on the back lot of Universal when that was made. So they used that as the set, and so we climbed up in the high steel and did, I don't know how many episodes of that, but 15 or 20 episodes of that. But it was sort of an action adventure thing, not so much a sitcom. So it was film. It wasn't done in studio. No live audience.
My book let me down. My book classified it, because I've not seen it, as so you set me straight. This is an educational program, and I'm glad I found that.
That's great. Yeah,
it says situation comedy, so this book is wrong.
Well, it was lighthearted, so you could call it a comedy, I suppose, but it wasn't done on a sound stage with 4 cameras. It was 3 cameras. It was a regular film set. Excellent.
Well, along came The Fall Guy around 1981, and
Yep.
would you please talk about your audition process for The Fall Guy, and also when was the pilot filmed, if you recall, the time frame?
As I recall, it was, I think, probably around November of 1981. The audition process was relatively easy because by then I'd done that pilot, which went no place, but then I did the When the Whistle Blows, which ran long enough to get some notoriety, not much, but a little bit, and it had substantial producers on it. So my name had been bandied about a little bit at that point. So by the time I was asked to audition for The Fall Guy, they already kind of knew who I was. So I went in and met with, it was one of those you didn't really have to audition, but I went in and kind of chatted with Lee and Glenn Larson, who was the producer and writer of that show for many of the episodes, but produced the entire thing. And, of course, did lots of other sort of action stuff back in the 80s, Glenn. Wonderful guy, as a matter of fact. At any rate, it was very easy. I went in, I chatted with Glenn, chatted with Lee. I think we read a scene together, and the next thing I know, I had the gig. So it was pretty easy.
That's awesome. And I have every episode on reel-to-reel 16mm film. I started collecting them in 1995 from a magazine called The Big Reel, which was a mailed monthly publication. It's all legal. It's ads of people that had films, and this guy had almost the whole set, and I'd pay $35 per reel. But I found
Wow.
an unaired version of the pilot from a film dealer out in Washington State, in Tacoma, Washington. And I watched it, and it's a hybrid. The first half is the unaired version of the pilot. The second half is the aired version. So I see all these scenes in the first half with Janet Leigh as your character's part-time boss. Soapy.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
my question, Doug, is did you film any scenes with her in the second half that I don't have with her in it that you recall?
I don't remember filming any scenes with her in the second half. I remember filming scenes with her in the first time around on that, and I was surprised to find that she wasn't there after. I have no idea how that worked out. I suspected it was a contract deal or it was a money deal or something that did not include me, but I was quite disappointed that she didn't continue on. She was lovely. She was really great, and ultimately I got to work with her ex-husband and their daughter over the years I've known for a long time. So.
Oh, wow. And so she was replaced by Joanne Flug, who most people will know from the movie MASH, the original. Well, she wasn't Hot Lips. That was another actress. That was Sally Kellerman. But she was in the movie MASH, Joanne Flug. Anyway, and she's Chuck Woolery's ex-wife, too, besides. But she's from Atlanta, where I'm from.
That's pretty interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, I'm learning on this call as well. This is great.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you sharing that. So you did do scenes with her. Darn it, I don't have any in my unaired print of you and Joanne, but I mean, you and Janet Leigh. But that's interesting.
It was a relatively small part for her because it was the bail bond. Here's your job. Now go off and do the rest of the show. And it ended up being that kind of all of the women playing the bail bonds person. So over the years that we did it, so probably that was it. There probably wasn't a great deal that was done between us, any of us on the show.
Very cool. I have a quick anecdote to share with you about that pilot. As you know, there were a lot of fantastic performers like Lou Rawls, Eddie Albert, the former star of Green Acres, Paul Williams, Farrah Fawcett, and more. Could you elaborate with shooting that pilot and working with some of those great talents while you were still relatively new to the business? How was that for you as a young man?
Well, I was incredibly blessed to have come into the Hollywood world when I was relatively young, but still transitional in terms of Hollywood and what was happening. A lot of the stars, Eddie Albert, you remember from Green Acres, but realistically, he was a serious movie star for many, many years in advance of that. So when Eddie Albert, to me, was amazing that I would even meet this guy. Paul Williams was friends with Lee and also with Glenn Larson. Glenn Larson had been a member of the, what was it called, Four Preps, I think it was the singing group that he was in. So he was very tied into the music world, and hence he was able to get these guys quite easily. Paul Williams was a friend of Lee's, who was a wonderful composer and singer, and Farrah, of course, was the wife or ex-wife. We know why she was there. At any rate, for me, it was really, really, really incredibly exciting to get to meet so many of those people and be on a show that, because Lee was so he was so loyal to his friends that if they were out of work, he would call them. If they were busily working, he would call them and get them to come and do the show as a guest because they liked him and they liked each other. And so we had an astonishing assortment of guest stars on that show. So over that 5-year period, 113 episodes, that's, if we had 6 guest stars on an episode, that's 700 people that came in as guest stars over the years. And I got to meet so many incredible people. I mean, Stuart Granger, old movie star, fabulous, amazing. David Carradine and Robert Carradine, and also his father, John. They were all on the show. And cowboy stars I'd seen on television, Doug McClure and Tab Hunter and Robert Morris, Broadway star, Britt Eklund, beautiful woman.
Jocko Mahoney.
So many.
Yeah.
Jock Mahoney, who was I'm blanking on her name, but
Sally Field's stepfather.
Sally Field's father. Yeah. Sally Field's father. Yep. Exactly right. Who I worked on a show later with, but I didn't even know they were related in those days. But he was the range rider, which was a show back, the Saturday morning cowboy show. So he was a big deal, and a lot of athletes as well. Larry Holmes came and did an episode, boxer and several others.
Oh, so many. I mean, you had also. Well, I know you didn't have any scenes with him, but you had. God, I'm having a brain toot. British
Well,
actor.
good, because I'm not the only one.
Oh God, no! It was it'll come to me. I don't want to waste your time as I'm sitting here fumbling in my feeble brain.
Well, I'll tell you about another one while you're thinking about
Okay.
it, and then it'll come to you. But one that I found really interesting was a woman named Gail Sondergaard. She had she was an old lady when she was on the show and was practically deaf. And so she said to me when we started the show, she said, "Look, I can't hear a damn thing. So when you stop talking, I'm going to start. So just make sure I'm looking at you when you stop talking." And she knew her lines, and so that's the way we played the scene. But Gail had won an Oscar in 1937. And then she was married to a guy named Herbert Bieberman, who was blacklisted by the House Un-American Activities Committee. Joe McCarthy had her blacklisted in Hollywood and had him blacklisted, and that they were both out of work for years, and finally she was coming back. So I did an episode with her, which was, this is movie history stuff that I got to participate in, got to meet during those days. In addition to that, it was a time when there were a lot of actors like in Hollywood who were doing television because they could do that. And having moved out there from New York, I was in a building in which Betty Davis lived upstairs from me. And so I got to know Betty Davis quite well because she had a house in Connecticut, and she thought I was a starving actor, even though I had a job when I was there. But she would leave peanut butter and jelly and anything that was in the refrigerator that would go bad with me with notes at my door. And I can tell you I've saved them all. So I have lots of Betty Davis notes. So it was an interesting time to be in Hollywood, incredibly interesting time to be in Hollywood as a young man.
It was Richard Burton. That's who I was trying to think of.
Richard Burton, yes. I did not get to have any scenes with him, which truly bummed me out, although I certainly couldn't have kept up, but I would have done my best. At any rate, I got to be quite friendly with him because, he and Lee, in fact, Richard told me that he and Lee became friends because he was jealous that Lee got much more attention if they'd walk down the street together than he got, which was like, what, really? At any rate, we went out to dinner several times, and got to know him fairly well. I can remember a few stories, and a couple of stories that he told me that I actually came home and I put on tape. I just took a little cassette and told the story. Okay, I was with Richard Burton tonight, and this is what he told me about this. And I still have that tape, I'm sure, in a box someplace. He was a fascinating, really wonderful, wonderful guy, and I was really proud to have ever gotten to know him.
And you had Sid Charisse, who a lot of movie buffs will know. She was in an episode. I mean, you just had a nice array of guest stars, and it's because they wanted to pay it back to these talents.
Yes, I think that's right. Listen, actors want a gig. They want to work, and if you don't have work, and somebody says, "Hey, it's only going to take you a week to do this. Do you want to come and do it?" And here are the other people who are going to be there. It's surprising who you can get, but realistically, it was Lee Majors that was able to gather in these stars, and Glenn Larson as well, who did lots of television. So
God bless his soul. And I wanted to mention, I don't know if you know this, you mentioned Paul Williams. In 2006, The Fall Guy was released by 20th Century Fox on DVD, and they omitted Paul Williams completely. They even digitally altered his face. They
Really?
Yes, I don't know what that's about.
So
It must be about money. But
it must be about money. It has to be about money. I can't think of any other reason they'd spend the money to do something like that.
It's crazy, and they also replaced all of the pop songs in the background with nondescript garage band type music, and obviously that's because of music royalties, and it's a shame.
It must be. Yeah, it's too bad. That is too bad.
But as you know, Disney bought 20th Century Fox, and I'll just tell you this. You may know this, maybe you don't know. There's a strong possibility that on Disney Plus streaming service, The Fall Guy will return very soon. I know
Really?
they're they're in the process of digitally converting the episodes, and Disney will do it right. They'll have all the original music and Paul Williams restored.
That would be
remains to be seen.
astonishing. That would really be fun. The European audience, it still plays in Europe quite a lot. So that's where actually the fan mail I get these days, which is, bits and pieces from The Fall Guy, which is astonishing because it was, 41 years ago? Was that 1981, 41 years ago that it was started? Unreal. And still getting fan mail from Europe because it plays now. Everybody there, I'm sure, thinks I'm 35 or 31 or whatever I was when I was doing that show, but not so much. But in any case, so that's it. So it still plays over there, and I have no idea what
It's a shame, Doug, in America. It has not been in regular rerun syndication since 1997 on the FX channel. So there's like two generations that are not really familiar with it, aside from season one with the butchered audio of the pop songs missing. Anyway.
Hey, I can only imagine this is all about rights and who owns the rights to that and how they decided to distribute it. I'm sure it's about money.
Are you familiar with the Decades channel? Because they will have a weekend binge of certain TV shows, and they have played The Fall Guy 3 times starting in 2016, but primarily it was season one, just the DVD versions with the altered music of season one, and a handful of episodes in one episode from season 2, a few from season 3, and a couple from season 4 that had no music at all. So they didn't have to go in and change the music or spend any money. They just aired it because there were no background songs featured in those particular episodes. But just so you know, and you know, I don't understand why musicians are taken care of, and they deserve to be, but so do actors. You know, I know they weren't the deals in terms of residuals back in the day that they have now, but I think it's a shame that actors aren't taken care of the way musicians are. That's all.
Yeah, but I must say that the Actors Guild, Screen Actors Guild, takes care of the people who are in the guild, and you can't really work unless you manage to break into the guild one way or another. So there's that, and residuals. You still get residuals from these things. Even when they run in Europe, I still get bits and pieces of stuff from all these years that I was in that bracket.
Well, that's good, and I know that the union, I used to do acting work, but I never went anywhere near your level. Like I started as an extra, blah, 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 but I know that the union does take care of actors with benefits, good health benefits. Anyway.
Incredible health benefits. And so does the Directors Guild, and so does the Writers Guild, and so does AFTRA. So all of the guilds, once you're established enough to be in the guild, then they have great pensions and great health care.
Excellent. And I'll just say to the audience, the people listening right now, the last time the Decades channel aired a Fall Guy marathon was on March 28th, 2021, but I digress. Hey, I have a question for you. Where was the exterior set for Colt's house? Was that really in the Hollywood Hills? It looked like it in the exterior shots by the second unit, but...
It was in the Hollywood Hills. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, David Somerville, who was one of the latecomers to the 4 Preps and an old friend of Glenn Larson's, wrote this theme song, the Hollywood Stuntman theme song that Lee sang for all the shows. And I think it was his house up there. But I remember that when we shot there, they told me that it had actually been built as a getaway. It was up in Laurel Canyon, I think, as I'm remembering, and it had been built as a getaway for either Laurel or Hardy from those original days, and it had been their house. But I think David Somerville is the one who actually owned it when we shot the pilot up there. And then the pilot was built after the pilot. Then the exterior and interior were both built on the soundstage.
Yeah, you seldom saw the back of the house, but there's one episode titled 8 Ball, like the game of pool. With Tony Curtis guest starring, where you saw the back of the house. Anyway.
Really? Wow.
Season 2.
I have no idea. They must have put up a flat or something and done something to make it look like the back of the house. We only went up there for the pilot. We were never up there again.
It was all stock shots then. Okay, moving forward.
Stock shots, or like I say, they built the whole set on a set. They built the whole set of the house exactly from the house that was up there. The crews can make it look like anything, and they made it look exactly like the one that was up there on the hill.
Wow. Over 20 years ago, I went to Hollywood trying to find that exterior set with no success back in 2002.
Hard, it was hidden away anyway, and it may not be there any longer. I don't know.
That's cool. And I read that y'all were near the MASH sets, because that was a 20th Century Fox production in the days you were filming Fall Guy. Anyway, I digress. But So there were several Fall Guy episodes with above average writing that did allow you to flex your acting muscles. And I'm going to play clips after the conclusion of our interview for the listeners out there. But there was a crossover episode called Trauma, which was a springboard to another Glenn Larson show called Trauma Center. It was kind of like a backdoor pilot. And your character was injured in a terrible set accident. The bad guys shoot out the tire of the stunt truck. It goes flying with you and Jody Banks, played by Heather Thomas, in the truck. And you sustain your character serious neurological damage, and you really were acting like your character's having seizures in the hospital. I mean, that was really a good episode for you as an actor.
I barely remember, to be honest with you. I must have had a little bit of head trauma anyway. But my guess is I was supposed to be unconscious for most of it, so I probably was dozing in a bed someplace more than paying much attention to it. I do remember that crossover though, because it was there were a couple actors who ended up doing Trauma Center that I knew, Wendy Malick and I think Jane Modine. I think they were both in that, and they were old friends of mine from modeling days in New York. And we ran into them again there. So.
And Lou Ferrigno was in that, playing paramedic. Yeah.
Yep.
And also, your character's mother was introduced in the Trauma Center episode. You didn't have any scenes with her, so as you know, I will talk about it in a minute, you did have your character's father was introduced in season 4 of The Fall Guy, but your mother was introduced, played by Patricia Crowley, in the Trauma Center version. She's acting her heart out. Colt calls her to tell her that you were injured. It was really a touching scene. Anyway, enough said.
I don't believe I ever met Patricia, but maybe so. But if I didn't have any scenes with her, I probably wasn't in on the day that she was doing all of that.
Well, in the syndication package, they never rerun that. It's only been seen one time on September 29th, 1983. Anyway, with her acting her heart out. And so I didn't know if you knew that your character's mother was actually introduced. In that. Anyway. I would
like to, now if I ever run into her, I'll have to remind her that she was my mother.
She was Adele. Adele Munson.
Very cool. Very cool. My father was Cameron Mitchell. He was a rodeo cowboy, and he was terrific. We did a couple episodes together, as I recall. I know at least one. And he was wonderful, wonderful to work with. And he was another one of those that I had seen in my youth. And to meet him and get to know him and get to act with him was really, really just sensationally exciting for me.
Yeah, I have a clip I'll play later after our interview from that episode, Private Eyes, which aired on October 24th, 1984, a while ago. But it was a beautiful scene where your character, Howie Munson, has prepared this wonderful meal and Dad forgot. And he shows up hours later, and there's a very dramatic scene where you confront him, and he doesn't like that you're pursuing a stuntman's life. He thinks you should be a doctor, lawyer, that sort of. It's a great scene.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, it was fun to do it with him. I remember it very well. And part of the character was that I'd gone to multiple colleges and just kept changing colleges and changing majors, and so heavily overeducated to be a stuntman, I suppose. But and understandable that he would think that. But in any case, it was great fun to have a little bit of drama in an otherwise not much real drama show. I
have that script in my hand. I know you probably can't see it, but Private Eyes. I have the original script in my hand for that episode because it's one of my favorites. And there's a funny line from Cameron as Brock Munson. He goes, "You could be president of U.S. Steel." You know, that you think he's going to say president of the United States. Anyway, I thought that was funny. But,
that's good.
Now, this is kind of a off-the-wall question, but in season 5, there was an episode called Dead Ringer. I'm sure you don't remember. This is like the get a life moment where you go, Chance, it was a job. I got a check. What are you talking about? Get a life. But there was an episode called Dead Ringer, which aired on September 26th, 85, where your character and the gang are going after a bail jumper who is an Elvis impersonator. And I don't know if you remember this. They put you up in an Elvis wig, and you have to distract the bad guys and impersonate the guy you're after, and you're singing Burning Love, the Elvis classic. Was that really you singing, or was that someone that dubbed your voice? Do you remember?
Stunningly, it was me singing. It was Hunka Hunka Burning Love, and it was stunning because although during my years as an acting student, singing student, drama student in New York, trying to break into the business, singing classes were amongst them, and the things that I took. And I can remember very well standing beside a piano as a wonderful singing teacher was teaching me how to sing, singing my heart out, and I would glance over and see him cringe with every bad note that I sang. So dogs howl when I sing typically, although that was me singing it, which is, I guess, proof that a good sound recorder can make something out of nothing.
Good to know. And you're supposed to be bad. That was the beauty of that comedic moment.
You can't go wrong.
You think you're doing great. Everyone else is like, "Oh, he stinks." And it was a funny scene. So
good.
And I have a little other question for you here. You competed in the ABC Battle of the Network Stars, actually representing ABC. What do you recall about that competition, and do you remember what events that you competed in? I used to love the Battle of the Network Stars.
It was a lot of fun. It was for everybody. It was really a lot of fun. I did it, I think, 2 or 3 times over the years. I don't remember which one you're thinking of, but I remember one in which Bill Shatner was the captain of our team, and he took it more seriously than the rest of us who were just out there more or less having fun. But they incentivized us all by paying whatever they paid, $5,000, $10,000, whatever it was, to show up for that Saturday and do all the different sports that they had you do. I remember swimming in most of them, and swimming was what I did in college and all through my youth. I was on swimming teams, so that was an easy one for me. But I remember that particular one. And then the incentive was that if you won or came in second or third, you'd get additional prizes, $30,000 or $20,000 or $10,000 or whatever. There's a lot of money. And so everybody was doing their best to not hurt anybody necessarily, but to win for sure.
Now, there were a couple episodes where you were dressed in drag. The writers just really tormented you, but I won't go into much detail. Everyone knows about the season 1 episode. It was a 2-parter where you're dressed in a Navy female uniform with Lee. You and Lee, equal time, are both dressed as ladies. But then in season 5, there was an episode with Scott Baio. And it was really funny because you're wearing this blonde wig, and the way it was written, there was a guy who was like an extreme right-winger type who doesn't know. It's preposterous because you can tell you're a guy, right? And he just has the biggest crush on you. I thought that was another example of comedy that was played well in The Fall Guy. Anyway, enough said.
Well, that's nice of you to say. You know, it was the hardest part for me was not to go over the top with the slapstick stuff, you know, and because it walked a very fine line between trying to be relatively comedic and at the same time relatively realistic, and so that was part of the challenge. But anyway, it was a lot of fun to do that one. I remember the Scott Baio one, and to do the one with Lee. I think we jumped off a bridge or something.
Yes,
one, which was a lot of fun too.
Aaron Gray guest starred in that one, as most people in the audience remember from Buck Rogers in the 25th Century.
And she's another one that I knew from New York days, from the modeling days too. There, you know, so many people transition from one to the other and go back and forth, and so yeah.
She's super nice. I've met her, and I met Lee too back in 2012. Big whoop.
Oh, good.
And
good.
Well, I wish I could meet you. I know you don't typically do conventions. You're too busy for that, but it's nice to talk with you. This is just a thrill. It really is.
Oh, this is a pleasure for me too. It's really great to reminisce about all these old things that I don't typically think about very much, but at the same time, it's nice to think about. So.
May I ask you, speaking of Lee Majors, little transition there, since he was the executive producer of The Fall Guy, would you consider him a boss, or what was his role as executive producer?
Well, you know, that's typically, it depends on whether you're in features or television. In the television world, if you're the executive producer, then that's an extra payday for the actor, basically, and you don't necessarily do the day-to-day producing stuff. But in his case, this was really his show built around him, and so there was no question about the fact that he was both a producer and really the guy who the show was about, and so that was clear to everybody, and so that's just the way it was. He was wonderful to work with. In that sense, he had come up with Barbara Stanwyck and other big stars before he was on this show, and he learned a lot from them about how to behave on a set, and he passed all of that on to those of us who were in the cast. So his attitude was, if you're the star of the show, you're the first one on the set. When they say we're ready, you're there before anybody else. And at the end of the day, which is one of the big lessons from him, was you stay until the very last minute and make sure that every other actor who's on the show with you, even if they only have one line, has somebody to read it opposite, so that you stay and read your lines. It doesn't matter if you want to go home or not, you stay until the last minute to give them the ability to act against somebody as opposed to just having a script person read the line so you can go home. He was very, very, very careful that way, and it speaks well of him that he was and did that. And that's why so many of those guest stars were willing to come back. They knew what a pro he was, and that they would be treated with great respect.
Yeah, you referenced a Big Valley there. He was supposed to be the star of Midnight Cowboy, the role that John Voight got, because they wouldn't let him out of his contract. Is what I read. I'm just going by what I've read in my research. Anyway,
I didn't know that. That could be. I don't know. It could be.
So did you guys ever leave the state of California to film episodes? Were the Hawaii ones that you referenced, were they actually shot in Hawaii, or did you just cheat?
I think we cheated did on those. I don't remember going to Hawaii on that. I've shot other things over there, but I don't remember going on the Fall Guy. I think we went up to Reno a couple of times, but most of it was shot around Los Angeles, up in the hills north of Los Angeles. All the stunts and a lot of the driving stuff was up there.
Cool. So you didn't go to San Francisco then for a season 4 episode that you recall? Maybe that was just stock footage then of the hills of
That
San Francisco?
probably was stock footage.
Okay.
I would guess that's stock footage, yeah.
Now I better speed along because running out of time. But the casting of the bad guys in The Fall Guy was impeccable. Many actors were used each year, like Terry Kaiser, who I happen to know was the best man at Lee's wedding, to Faith
They were
Noel.
very dear friends, yeah.
And, of course, most people will know him as the dead guy in Weekend at Bernie's. That's Terry Kaiser.
Yes. He's a terrific guy, Terry. Yes.
And he was in a movie that I know Curtis talked with you about, Steel, which sounds similar to When the Whistle Blows, about steel workers. Anyway, Terry Kaiser was in
Very
that.
similar, yeah.
Do you have a favorite villainous actor on the show that you remember, or can you not really? You don't want to maybe play favorites, or?
Well, there were so many, of course. There was always a bad guy and a good guy, and there were the blacks and the white hats in all of these shows. I remember Richard Keel, who was really a wonderful guy. He played Jaws in the Bond movie. Remember him?
Yes.
Yeah, look
With the
him up
stick.
and take a look at him, and you'll remember him for sure. There was another guy named Bob Tessier who was had the look of a bad guy, and he was a terrific guy to work with. But there were so many that there's so many great actors who came through there, character actors, wonderful character actors came through, and it was great to work with all of them. So, but those two guys stick out to me.
There was one I really liked to watch from season 5, Stanley Camel, who is sadly deceased. He had a big break in Beverly Hills 90210 many years later as Antonio's father. But there was a serious episode titled The Life of Riley that dealt with the heartbreaking, serious subject matter of child abduction. And it was just a well-written, serious episode with, I think it was a one-time director. I can't remember the director's name, but it was directed very stylishly. And anyway, that was one of my favorites. And he was really scary in that. He played like this lawyer who was having goons abduct kids off of playgrounds so he can get paid $30,000 a piece to have them adopted to unsuspecting couples. Anyway, that was a good episode, actually.
Yeah, for the Fall Guy, that was a pretty heavy subject.
Yes.
But yes, and memorable, and he did a really good job, as a matter of fact. So.
Another question, what was it like to wrestle with Andre the Giant back in the first season?
It was really surprising. At that point in my life, I was, I guess, 6'1" and 180 pounds or 185 pounds, something like that. And he picked me up and spun me around over his head like it was nothing. Honestly, it was. I thought, how is he going to do that? I'm going to have to get on a ladder. And he just picked me up and spun me around and slammed me onto the thing. It was like, wow, that was amazing. And he too, an incredibly nice guy. We went out to dinner a couple of times. A lovely guy. Really a lovely guy.
And that episode was titled, for folks that want to check it out, you can find this. It's on the DVD, and I think it's on IMDb TV. It's called Ladies on the Ropes, and your future wife, Claire, was in that episode, playing one of the lady wrestlers.
Yes, which is certainly a one-off in her career that she was like a lady wrestler ever. It was stunning that she was cast in that, but it worked out very well for us, as it turns out. So I knew Claire from New York days, though, so that wasn't the first meeting by any means. But yeah, I was surprised that she ended up on that show.
I always thought you did meet on the show, so you just dispelled something that wasn't true.
Yeah, no, we met in New York in the modeling business. We both had the same agent, Wilhelmina, back in the New York days, and so we knew each other for a long time. I didn't really go out with her in New York. I first actually was introduced to her by the same guy I was on the motorcycle with, traveling around Europe, my best friend from my freshman year in college, still my best friend. And he introduced me to her at, I hate to say it, Studio 54 of all places. But he was,
wow.
And it was a hi, how are you?
Yeah.
And then and that was about all we had time for. So it was great to rerun into her in California. She had a boyfriend, I remember, at that point. So I didn't spend much time making it. And I knew him, still know him, as a matter of fact, that guy. And so I didn't really make a play for her until California. At that point, she didn't have a boyfriend, so it worked out very well.
Excellent, excellent. And you mentioned earlier Stuart Granger, and Priscilla Presley was in that episode.
Yeah, she was she was lovely to work with too. They're all, I mean, just I keep saying they're lovely, but that is how it was. It was a very, very friendly set, and it wasn't very demanding acting work. And so, and after you do so many episodes, so many scenes over a long period of time, everybody's very comfortable with the cast and crew, and everybody came prepared and knew what they were supposed to do. And it was really a lot of fun, really a lot of fun. Every day was a lot of fun.
I bet it was. Was there ever a blooper reel of Fall Guy outtakes made for the cast and crew for the Christmas or the wrap party that you recall?
Yeah, I remember one. I think there were a few of them over the years.
No way!
Yeah, there was one that was probably pretty funny, because I was doing a scene that was, and I know they filmed this because it was a scene for one of the shows in which I was supposed to be tied up in a back room of something or other, and they I was saying, I'm thirsty, I need some water, please give me some water, and they had taken a 50-gallon drum and put it in not in the rafters, but in the lighting grid, the pipes that hold the lighting up above. This whole crew was obviously behind this. And I'm saying, water, and they poured the whole thing over me.
Oh, man!
Which just flooded the sound stage, but they were ready for it. Everybody was into it. So
wow, like you're Kirby Smart or Nick Saban or something. That's funny.
Yeah,
like the Gatorade.
Except it was 50-gallon
yeah,
drum. It wasn't like a little bit of water.
Yeah.
Blood. But it was a good gag, and they filmed it, so that probably exists someplace. I don't know where, but someplace.
That sounds like the episode Spring Break from season 4, directed by Ted Lange, that most people know from The Love Boat. Isaac, he directed a couple episodes.
Yeah, he's a very good director, Ted.
Yeah. So let's see. Oh, I have a question. Now, I'm on the business side of acting, because I told you, and you inspired me. I did a stunt on The Walking Dead with a squib. I got shot in the head, and you're going to think I'm such a dork, but I thought, my God, I'm a real life Howie. I'm doing a stunt on a big production back in like summer of 2010. But I thought about your character, and anyway, but let me ask you this. Like, I always wondered, because I never made it to the level that you did, being on a big network show. I'm not talking about the money, the dollar amount, but were you paid weekly or monthly? How does that work? Do you remember?
The contracts, your agent cut the deal, and every year there'd be a re-up of your contract, and it was by the episode with a guarantee. So if it's 22 episodes that would shoot in a year, they'd guarantee all 22, or they'd guarantee all 18, whether you did them or not, or 15 out of 22, whatever it was, and then you'd just be paid by the episode as the weeks went by. All of them took more or less 7 days, so it was once a week you'd get a check for that episode.
Cool. And I read that Lee actually he was leasing some space near the studio so he didn't have to commute. That's what I read. Who knows if it's true, but that was my understanding. But that's a Lee thing.
Yeah, he might have been. I don't remember him having any place other than where he was living. But
all right,
maybe he did. I don't know.
Do you have a preferred director or writer on Fall Guy, or no?
Well, there were lots and lots, obviously, over the years, but some did multiple episodes. Dan Haller did a lot of them. He was a wonderful guy and a wonderful director. Bruce Bilson did a batch of them for us. His granddaughter, Rachel Bilson, is an actress now. You may have seen her in something or other. There was a guy named Hollingsworth Morse. We call him Holly Morse, and he was an old director. He'd been around a long time, and he, too, was really terrific. Writer-wise, well, of course, Glenn Larson, who wrote a lot of the episodes, or some of the episodes. There was a guy named David Garber, who I had to be very friendly with, a terrific guy, a really good writer. David Graff was good. Of course, Harry Thomason, I became very friendly with Harry Thomason, who's married to Linda Bloodworth Thomason, and he directed and produced and wrote some Fall Guys. A guy named Bert Armus was another one of the writer-producers. He'd been a New York City cop, tough guy, detective, and in fact, I think he was, if I'm remembering right, he was part of the French Connection bust, the real one, not the movie one. And he was a great guy too. So there were a lot of really wonderful and interesting people on staff, and with that many episodes, there were you got to meet a lot of really, really interesting people, really talented, incredibly talented people.
Indeed. My favorite writer as a fan was Nick Thiel, who was like the story editor, I believe, in season 1. He left after season 1, and previously he had written episodes of 8 is Enough. He was a really good writer anyway.
He was a really good writer too. Yep, I remember Nick. Yep.
Now, maybe you can dispel another rumor. You've already talked about working with Roy Rogers and what a joy that was for you. There was a rumor in the second episode in season 3 that he did in Fall Guy titled King of the Cowboys that he was injured. Do you know, is that true or is that just internet BS?
I don't recall that, and I'm sure I would have known about it or heard about it, but I didn't hear anything about that. There was one, we would do 4, 5, 6, 7 fairly major stunts and some incredibly major stunts over the years per episode. And so remarkably, our stunt coordinator, a great guy named Mickey Gilbert, and his son was my double, Timmy Gilbert. One bad accident over all of the 5 years and 113 episodes, and that would have been hundreds of stunts. And that was unfortunate, and somebody was hurt in that, but nobody was killed, gratefully. But it could have been a bad one.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Do you remember what was the most dangerous or memorable scene? I did read an article about early on. There's a scene with some rubber cement simulating black smoke in the back of the cab. An episode called "The Human Torch." Is there something else that comes to mind that was harrowing?
That one was harrowing only because they took a long time to get the cameras set and rolling, and they put a layer of rubber cement in not in a shallow pan over the whole bed of the back of the truck. And it was Brian Leary, who was on Chips in those days. And
yes.
One great gal. She was terrific. And so she was in the cab, and Lee was driving, and I was on the passenger side. She was between us, and Lee had a button to push. So when they said, okay, action, and then they cued us with a radio, push the button. And it was supposed to just become a big ball of black smoke, but the fumes had built up, and it exploded a huge pall of fire, and it blew out the seal around the back window behind our heads and filled the cabin of the truck with black smoke. And so he kept going. We got the shot, so we didn't have to do it again. And we got the shot wheeled to a stop, and then we all dove out of the car. So that was a fairly close call. Fire is a tough gag. We did many of our own stunts. Certainly all of the fighting, that sort of stuff, take the punch and fall and all of that, and high stuff. In those days, they were pretty. Even that series that I was doing in the high steel, the way I'd get up on top of the building, it was just big I-beams. It was, I think, 4 stories tall, and they'd lower the hook on the end of a crane and say, wrap your legs around the ball on the end of the thing above the hook, and we'll take you up there, and then step off and hang on to the girder that's up there. This is crazy, with no safety, anything. It was insane, but that's what they did in those days. It was the same on the Fall Guy. We got away with doing a lot of stunts ourselves, and sometimes it would just be, you could be hanging from a helicopter upside down and having a stuntman just sitting on your feet, not really wired in. It was really crazy, but for me, it was really great fun. It was really, really fun to be able to do all that sort of stuff. Learned a lot about how to do it, too. It's cool.
Excellent. You mentioned Brienne Leary. You know where she got her start? Was as a contestant on Match Game back in 1976.
Is that true? Wow.
That's a true story. Yep. And then
Timothy Leary was her uncle, if I'm not mistaken. I know she was related to her. I think it was her uncle, Timothy Leary.
Yep. And in that stunt, you referenced the bad guys have cut the brake line of the truck, and so Colt goes into a lake, and there's where the black smoke was needed. After some bad guys, I think they threw a Molotov cocktail into the back of the truck as well.
Cocktail theoretically into the back, and that's when they cued him to push the button that set off the charge in the back, and away we went.
That's what it was. It was a Molotov cocktail from the bad guys in another vehicle. That's right. So let's see. Oh, real quick. Gosh, we only have about 10 more minutes. There was a third season episode with the guest star Robert Morse, who people will know from Mad Men, and it was titled Rabbit's Feet, where you work with all these bunny rabbits. Do you remember working with a bunch of bunny rabbits? There was one that was, the reason I ask is one of my pets is a bunny. And do you remember, I know I sound a little nutty there, but
I honestly do not remember that episode at all.
Okay, it was from season 3. Henry Darrow guest starred from High Chaparral, an old Western.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah, another one of my favorites from the cowboy shows that I used to love in those days.
Yeah, and I'll just rattle off some names of big stars that Lee brought back to work. Don Adams, Maxwell Smart from Get Smart, Pat Bettram I talked about already, Mr. Haney from Green Acres, Doug McClure, who was in every season playing a different role, except for season 4 and 5. He was in the Elvira episodes with Cassandra Peterson as the same. He played a pompous actor who wanted to do his own stunts.
He was anything but pompous. He was a great guy.
Oh yeah. I mean his character, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Let's see. So, and I love the music in the show, which was composed by Stu Phillips, who had done the original Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers, Knight Rider, all the Glenn Larson shows primarily. And it's really a shame that Stu is underappreciated for his Fall Guy work, because it really did sort of set the tone of the action. There'd be really rousing music that he scored. But
yeah.
taking a serious turn, I was really sad, of course, when Markie Post passed away.
Yeah.
Would you
Very
please
sad.
discuss working with the late Markie Post?
Oh, she was wonderful. She's a wonderful person. Her husband was lovely too. He was an actor and a producer, writer, and terrific guy. Yeah, she was really great. We didn't have her around long enough, sadly. But yeah, a really terrific woman, and she was just so good at what she did, and then went off and did Night Court and other great stuff too. So.
I know. I wish the writers had written more episodes, and I always wanted your characters to get together. I wanted Howie and Terry. By the way, her first name was Terry Shannon in season 2, and for some unknown reason, in my research, I can't find out why, her last name was rewritten to Terry Michaels. Anyway, enough said.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was really sad when she passed away in 2021, and there was an episode where you saved her life from kidnappers played by Morgan Brittany, whose real name is Suzanne Cupido in season 3. I know you may not remember that, but it was just a good episode where you were a real hero and you saved Terry's life. Anyway, that's a great episode.
That's nice.
And someone has put them on YouTube, the episodes from European recordings. As you said, it still runs in Europe, The Fall Guy does.
Yep.
But they're PAL, they're time accelerated, they're sped up, and that just is a film snob that irritates me when your voice doesn't sound like your voice. You know, it's sped up frames per second. But
I've never seen any of them, but in any case, yeah.
And I wish the writers of the 90s sitcom Hearts of Fire, the Markie Post John Ritter sitcom, had written a story for you to be reunited with Markie. Oh, well, that would have been cool.
Oh, it would have been fun. It would have been fun to work with John, too.
Yes.
No,
and another question now, in my opinion, Heather Thomas had the best body of anyone in TV in all of the 80s. and you and Heather had excellent on-screen chemistry and comedic timing. But in my opinion, you were like the Jethro Bodine to her Ellie Mae in the 80s, like from the Beverly Hillbillies. Anyway, I really think that.
She's a wonderful woman. I'm in touch with her, talk to her all the time, and she does lots and lots of charity work. Married very well to an incredibly talented entertainment attorney.
Skip
has a bunch of kids, and she's just terrific. Smarter than a whip. You know, we all kind of played goofballs on that show and others, but that woman is a very, very, very talented and bright woman. Written a bunch of scripts. She's really something.
And I read her whole family is intelligent too, PhDs. Anyway.
Yeah. I think her sister and and even her mother. I think they were all involved in the UC system.
I always wondered on the show, where did Howie sleep? On the couch all those years? I mean, they're cousins. They're cousins, right? So obviously they didn't sleep in the same bedroom.
I have no idea. I have no idea where I supposedly slept there.
And then we touched on Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Any memories of working with Cassandra? Good, bad, or
Very
ugly?
Nice woman. Surprising how different she looks when she doesn't have the get up on.
Yeah. And how about Buddy Hackett? Because you
Buddy
worked
Hackett,
closely.
I have one Buddy Hackett story. We were all, you wait sometimes. They say, okay, everybody get in the car. All the actors get in the car. Go into the room. Get into your on the set, and then something happens with the film, and they land there, a light falls or something, and you end up waiting. And I remember getting into a car for a scene. It was Heather and me and Lee and Buddy and a couple of guest stars. We all crammed into a big station wagon, and Buddy couldn't. He had a terrible gas problem that day.
Oh!
Couldn't help himself. So, but we were all stuck. You can't get out of the car. But he just kept it up and never stopped giggling through the entire waiting period, which is probably 20 minutes waiting for the director to yell action.
Wow.
Yeah, he too was a character. He's really funny. Somebody else I loved meeting. Somebody from my youth. Even, and he was just great.
I liked Mills Watson. I don't know if you didn't work with him that closely, but he had been on Glenn Larson's The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo previously. Anyway, he guest starred a few times on Fall Guy. Anyway, I digress. So, how much Doug Barr is and was there in Howie Munson and vice versa?
Well, I hope of the side of Howie that was terribly naive. Hopefully, I hadn't been that naive in many, many, many years, and so that was a bit of the acting thing, and I had to draw back a little bit to come to that. But what I thought the character was most interesting for being was enthusiastic about everything, and I thought that was really a good lesson to be teaching young people. Be excited about everything you do.
Amen. Now, if you could write an update script for Howie, because you are a writer, of course, a professional script writer, director, where is Howie in 2022 in your mind? If you could write.
I think Howie probably continued in the stunt world, but ended up into writing, directing, producing, all of the things that would use the talents that he might have learned from all the years he spent in various colleges around the world.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I got 4 minutes, 4-minute warning here with you, but as we pivot past the Fall Guy, I must ask, did you keep any props, items, wardrobe from Fall Guy, scripts?
All of the above. Actually, I have every script that I ever acted in. I threw them in a show I ever did, including every episode of The Fall Guy. I know Lee has a box full of old scripts as well. I kept some props that the prop guys would give me. I had a letter that I got from, they get stuff out of the files that might have gone into a dumpster, and then they use it for staging on a set of an office building or something. And so there was a letter. I was sitting there just reading between takes. Some of the junks that they put out there is office stuff, and one was a letter from the former director of the FBI, long dead, the most famous ever. And it was to 20th Century Fox talking about a movie that he was complaining about how they had written a story about the FBI. So I kept that, put that in my pocket. I did ask the prop guy, yeah, what do I care? Take that. And I remember an old script I had that had the notes from the Charlie's Angels cast, and it was one of their old scripts. But it was the same thing. They just put it out to be paperwork on a desk. So I kept that because that had all the girls had put their notes for their dialogue about what they should say and how they should do it, and blah blah blah. So that was fun. So yeah, I have a box full of that stuff.
Wow.
That I've kept over all these years, and in fact, in my bathroom right here in the office, my office at home, I have all the clacker boards that you say act in scene one. I've kept one from every film that I directed. I asked if I could take one of those home, so they're all framed in my bathroom here.
That's very, very cool.
Honor.
That's
cool.
Awesome stuff. Well, I was going to say, one of the scripts, the one that you talked about working with Cameron as your dad, it had Robert Stack listed. So for whatever reason, that deal must have fallen through or he wasn't available. But it was written to have Robert Stack in it. Anyway, I digress. Running out of time here. The very next season after Fall Guy wrapped production, you didn't miss a beat in your acting career in those days as you immediately starred in The Wizard on CBS as Alex Jagger, which was an interesting and unique hour-long foreign intrigue adventure show, which starred a dwarf actor named David Rappaport from Time Bandits.
Yeah, from Time Bandits. And if you saw that movie, you know how good of an actor David was. Dave Rappaport was a musician, a high-caliber musician, a fine actor, a really wonderful guy. And the show was terrific as well. It was very family-friendly. Michael Burke and Doug Schwartz wrote that. Remember them from Baywatch, and it was really about he being a little person but a genius, and he would come up with all kinds of different things that would help people and do things. So it was a very family positive show. It was a shame we only did, I think, 19 episodes. I wish that it had kept running, but the ratings just didn't go there for us. But God, it was a wonderful experience to work on that show. Sadly, David passed away a long time ago, but he was really an enormous talent, Dave Rappaport.
He passed on May 2nd, 1990. Very sad. And, you mentioned ratings, and it's because the network kind of sabotaged the show. They scheduled it against Matlock, which was a hit on NBC, and then two popular ABC sitcoms, Who's the Boss and Growing Pains, which were pretty new shows then. I think it was in their second season.
Yeah, it died because of the competition. It was actually the competition was really Matlock, and it was sort of unexpected because he'd been around a long time. It's just another lawyer show. It didn't seem like that was going to be much, Andy Griffith, that much competition, but it turns out it was enough to kill us. So it was too bad because the show had it had a lot of heart, and it had a lot of good messages. Every episode was really a terrific message. It did get me into the Writers Guild, though, because I wrote an episode about that was the first job that I got as a writer that was paid, and that's what you have to get something produced to get into the union, and so it got me into the Writers Guild.
That's excellent, excellent. Well, gosh, I'm out of time here. Just about. I just want to ask you one other last question, if I could. Do you have just another minute, or do you need to run?
I do. I've got a Zoom call in 15 minutes, but I've got a couple minutes more.
Okay. All right. Well, the other thing about The Wizard I didn't like was they moved it in the middle of sweeps weeks to Saturday night at 8, opposite The Facts of Life in 227 and Life with Lucy on ABC. Anyway, so it just wasn't given a fair shot, and it was a great show, and the pilot's on YouTube. If you want to look up The Wizard on YouTube, anyone out there that wants to see it. And then the creators of The Wizard, Michael Burke and Douglas Schwartz, went on to create Baywatch. And then last question, I guess, how did you get to act on Designing Women as Colonel Bill Stillfield?
Well, one of the writers that I mentioned and producers earlier was my friend Harry Thomason, and Harry is married to Linda Bloodworth Thomason, who was a writer from way back in the days when she was writing MASH, and brilliant writer, and she was the writer and producer on that, and he was a co-producer with her, and he directed some episodes as well. And he asked me to come over and just be the boyfriend of, and then ultimately the husband. We got married on film on an episode of it with Jean Smart, one of the best actors, I think, in the business today and forever. She's a wonderful, wonderful actress. I was delighted to be able to even sit next to her, let alone do scenes with her. And the show was kind of, it was fun because Dixie Carter's husband was Hal Holbrook, who played her boyfriend, and Delta Burke's husband, Gerald McCraney, was on there playing Annie Potts's, was it Annie Potts's, I think, boyfriend or whatever. And so it was sort of an incestuous little group there of actors. Meshack Taylor was on that show. So I did several episodes for that, and it was really great to have sort of a recurring role with such wonderful people. Wonderful director named David Traynor did most of those, or many of those. And the character was called Colonel Bill Stillfield. I was supposed to be a fighter pilot, and I think Bill Stillfield was actually an old boyfriend of Linda's in her youth. Yeah, that's where the name came from. And then through the Thomasons, I was already involved sort of in political stuff over the many years. And through the Thomasons, I met Bill Clinton when he was still governor of Arkansas, because she was from Missouri and Harry was from Arkansas.
Oh, is that right?
They knew him from down there, and so I met him in a little fundraiser in our backyard in Los Angeles, and I had a hard time even getting the crowd to show up.
That's cool.
For that little fundraiser, yeah. But as it turned out, we became a bit friendly, and I ended up being with Harry and my old buddy from the motorcycle days. We were on the production staff of the inaugural balls and all the events, which was talk about music rights. We had, I think it was 53 different acts, and we had every major act in the world calling to be involved in that. But they never recorded it because of music rights. And
what motorcycle did you ride back in the day?
I had a BSA. I had a small BSA because we couldn't afford anything any bigger than that. I had one and he had one, and we sort of followed one another around the Europe on those little motorcycles. We were the only vehicle on that Greek island. Our two motorcycles. The only other than that was an old school bus, and that was it. Otherwise, it was a donkey ride. And of course, that's all changed now. There's an international airport on Mykonos now, but I don't know what that is.
I'm gonna play some clips after. I know we got to run, but I know you have to run, and I'll play some clips of you from Designing Women, and you work with Delta Burke on Fall Guy in the pilot and in a season 2 episode. Right. But anyway,
I think she was Miss Florida or Miss Universe or Miss something when I met her, and she too was just terrific. And Gerald McCraney was a wonderful actor, her husband. Yeah,
he's great.
Great too.
He's great. Well, all right. Well, and was it this is the absolute last question. Was it a tough transition acting in front of a live studio audience and Designing Women versus filming a series?
It's a completely different game. It's completely different, but it's still acting is acting. It's the same sort of thing. But what was wonderful about that one was that she's such an enormously talented writer that was a sitcom that dealt with everything from cancer to every kind of political issue that you can imagine, and they did it all with such astonishing great humor. So she's a genius writer, Linda Bloodworth. Wow. Incredible.
Well,
yeah,
Mr. Barr,
great pleasure to
And speaking of a great pleasure, it's been a true honor and a joy to finally meet you, in air quotes, and speak with you. After watching every Fall Guy on film every 5 years or so, I run them in production order, like one a week or something, because it's like larger than life. It's like being in a movie theater in my home theater setup. Anyway, but it's been a pleasure.
It's fantastic. I appreciate you watching those things. It's hard for me to believe that you even remember it and that anybody remembers it. But in any case, it's been a pleasure to sort of reminisce about that. And you are terrific, Chance. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. And not if, but when there is a Fall Guy feature made, they better call you to make a cameo or greater in the new incarnation of the Fall Guy, which is rumored to star Mark Wahlberg. We'll see.
That would be great if he did that show. I think he'd be terrific, and he's a really good actor.
Thanks, Doug, from the bottom of my heart. This was very meaningful to me, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chance. Take care of yourself.
All right. God bless. Bye. How about that, Mr. Doug Barr? Very gracious man. Gosh, I had asked so many questions. I didn't have a chance to hold up the phone number. So forgive me. Anyone out there that was commenting saying, you promised I could ask a question. Well, I'm going to ask Doug maybe a year from now if he'd allow me to interview him again, or 6 months or whatever. I don't want to pester the man, but maybe we could do this again. And I'll have a whole new batch of questions just from fellow fans like me. Not anything that I wrote as a question. So let's see here. Some of my favorite moments of Howie Munson on The Fall Guy. The character, he was on a cruise ship, feigning unconsciousness, and he goes face first into some bean dip in an episode called Death Boat. And there was a cool character named Kay Faulkner who was Colt's nemesis. She was an insurance investigator, and she was played by Judith Chapman, who has been in the soap operas ever since Fall Guy was on the air. She's been on CBS's, I think it's The Young and the Restless, and she is going strong in the soap opera game. Judith Chapman, look her up, but she was in the first couple years a nemesis, and she was in that episode Death Boat, which is a take on The Love Boat, but they called it Death Boat, and that's one of the best episodes. If you know the opening credits of Fall Guy, you'll notice at the very end, Colt grabs onto a ladder on a helicopter as a convertible goes over a cliff and into the sea. And that's from that episode. That was a new stunt. That wasn't stock footage, ladies and gentlemen in the audience. That was real. That's one of my favorite episodes called Death Boat, which is on YouTube, and hopefully it'll be on Disney Plus. I have from a very reliable authority, he's probably pissed that I mentioned this, that they are being digitally converted and will stream on Disney Plus. That remains to be seen, but I'm fairly confident that will happen. Another funny Howie moment was in season 3, an episode called Pleasure Isle. All of these you can look up on YouTube, where Jodie Banks, Heather Thomas, is dancing in a bikini at a luau on this private island owned by one of the bad guys, played by Richard Lynch. And he's noticing, oh my God, because he thinks of her, I guess, as a cousin, but he's like, oh my God, look at that body. It was wonderful reaction acting by Doug Barr, really funny stuff. And then there was a really good serious episode in season 4 where Howie and Colt help a boy with Down syndrome in a moving 4th season episode titled The Winner, which was filmed at the 1984 Special Olympics in Los Angeles. And who else was in that episode was Lou Ferrigno as himself, helping some of the athletes in the Special Olympics, and the former Bruce Jenner was in that one as well. Caitlyn Jenner these days. And so, let's see. And I liked Howie cutting up with Ace, played by Stuart Margolin, who viewers will know as Angel in the Rockford Files. And he guest starred in a season 2 episode of The Fall Guy. Good stuff. Again, hopefully once this winds up on Disney Plus or somewhere, The Fall Guy, the entire series, someone can re-listen to this interview with the great Doug Barr, and you'll know what I'm talking about. Because as Doug said, it's not fresh in his mind, and it's been out of syndication since 1997 on a regular basis. So, except for in Europe and around the world. I know it's popular in Germany as well. He also acted with Lindsay Wagner, the Bionic Woman, in the season 3 premiere, Devil's Island. That was a good one too. And I liked his chemistry he had with Lindsay Wagner. And a funny little moment of Doug Barr early on in the show in season 1, in an episode titled Colt's Angels, he's dressed up as a Hell's Angel, a biker with his fake beard. And towards the end, he goes to a stunt. They're trying to fool the bad guys. And it's just a little thing. He's pulling off the fake beard to the security guy, this old security guy. He goes, look, it's me, Howie, me, Howie. And then another really funny thing, he really inspired me just in my sales career. Doug Barr's character of Howie Munson, he really did. His enthusiasm. And there was one episode where he's undercover and he has to infiltrate. Well, actually, Heather Thomas's character infiltrates a female roller derby team. And he goes in to talk to one of the bad guys who's like laundering money or something. And he represents a magazine called Roller Derby World. This is very subtle. I don't know why I'm saying this because it won't mean anything to you, but it just always meant something to me. Where the bad guy's like, I never heard you or your magazine. And he's like, Roller Derby World. Roller Derby World. Like, how dare you? You've never heard of my magazine? It was funny. He was like pseudo pompous. Howie playing a character undercover. I don't know. I just always like that little silly scene. And then he, of course, got on roller skates towards the end of that episode and took a dive, took a spill, took a pratfall on roller skates. Howie, Doug Barr did. That was kind of funny. And then also he competed with his rival Jimmy Joe Severs, played by Terrence Goodman, on the football field in a season 2 episode titled "Win One for the Gipper." So, oh God, I just thought that was great to interview him. Because I watch him every 5 years or so, maybe every 6 or 7 years. I try to put new things in my head with reading and watching things. So, it's not healthy to watch the same thing again and again and again. But having these on film every few years, every 5 years or so, I'll watch one a week or one every couple weeks in production order, as I mentioned to Doug. And it's great. I have it piped through 5 speakers with a 65 millimeter lens, which was made for the U.S. military in 1987. It's a 65 millimeter lens. It's better than 1080p HD, and it just looks great. I mean, killer sound, huge image. Anyway, it makes it more like a movie. So I'm going to play a couple more clips of Doug and his acting. I referenced the episode with his father, and I want to play this clip so I can take a break. All this coffee's running through me. I have to use the little dude's room, TMI. But this is the episode Private Eyes that he had referenced, and let me get this clip for you now. This is one of my favorite scenes. Let me see here. Q mark. Here we go. Let me get this for you. Awkward silence. All right, here we go. So Howie's making a big meal for his dad.
Your last Colt that if we had to post bail for you.
But what's going on? His dad, that's the guy talking. That's the actor Cameron playing Bronk Munson, who he's sort of stuck in the past, like me, Chance Bartell's The Nostalgic Podblast, but in a good way. And he wants to be on the rodeo circuit. And Howie's trying to tell him, look, you need to retire, Dad. You're not a young man anymore. You're going to get hurt. So here he is in a bar. Here's his dad talking with Colt Severs, played by Lee Majors, and he realizes he forgot. He had a dinner date with his son, who spent half the afternoon preparing a wonderful meal. Let's listen.
Underway, that we could hire you to go and find yourself.
Are you really set on going back out on the circuit?
Yep.
Sure seems to me that rodeoing's a young man's game.
Well, that depends on the man, Colt. No, I figure I could teach these kids a trick or two.
Probably so. But I think there comes a time in every man's life when he's got to think about retirement.
Here's Bronk Munson. I ain't gonna sit in no garden. I ain't gonna pull no weeds.
Nobody said you had to stop living.
You know something? You're beginning to sound like a foolish son of mine.
Say what you will about Howie, but he's nobody's fool.
Then why does he let his life go down the drain?
Look, he's not. Just because he's pursuing a different dream than the one you had planned for him. Two more fellas?
Oh, I forgot it.
What's the problem?
I was supposed to have dinner with Howie tonight. I bloated. Hey, ain't that pretty? Colt, look at that. Pretty as a picture. Hey, Howie. Hey. I'm sorry, we're a little late. Colt and me got to talking, and I just lost track of time.
Never changes, does it?
Well, what we having for supper? Sure smells good.
For supper?
Yeah.
For supper, we got some soggy salad. And we got some overbaked potatoes. We got some prime rib jerky.
Great! That's just what your mama would have made me when I come home late from rodeo.
Like I said, nothing ever changes.
Oh, Howie. Could have happened to anybody.
Yeah, it could happen to anybody.
Well, I tell you what. Tomorrow morning, first thing, we sit down over a nice cup of coffee and talk it out.
There are no more tomorrows. Now it's now or both of you throw in the towel.
Hey, now there's an idea. Let's throw in the towel.
Is that what you want?
Yes.
I second that motion.
Wait just a minute. Come here. Now tell him what's bothering you. Go on.
All right. You want to know what it is?
Uh-huh.
All right. For as long as I can remember, I felt like I've been nothing but a disappointment to you.
Okay, now, you talk to him. To him.
Well, you're perceptive, son. Because in many ways you have disappointed me.
How? How? I've always tried my hardest at everything I've done.
But you've done all the wrong things. I mean, I didn't bust my button on a rodeo circuit and put you through them fancy schools just so you could be a stunt man like your cousin Cole here. I mean, Howie, I wanted more for you.
You didn't send me through those schools. Colt did. And there's nothing wrong with being a stuntman. It's a good living.
He's not saying that, kid. Okay, he's talking about a father's expectations.
Well, what about a son's expectations for his father?
I mean, you was ashamed that your daddy was a rodeo cowboy?
Shame. I was the proudest kid in the world. I just wanted to see more of you. I wanted a full-time father.
You never told me that before.
You never asked me. Over the years, I learned to accept you. I learned you had to be who you were. Why can't you see that that's all I wanted to? I wanted a chance to live my own life, a chance to live my life in a way that I'd be the happiest, not by your standards or his standards or anybody's standards but my own. You made a big mistake with me, Dad. You taught me to be independent. You taught me to think for myself. You taught me to be just like you. See you guys then.
I guess I'll turn in too, Bronk. Good night.
There you have it. And his dad's wiping a tear away. And anyway, one other clip from Fall Guy that I'm going to play for the ladies in the audience, just a couple brief, like 1 minute, 2 minute clips from Designing Women. Fellas, just please deal with it. Let me play one more clip from Fall Guy. And you heard Doug talking about working with all these great legends that Lee cut a check for or gave some acting work to help him out. Well, here's a scene in King of the Cowboys, Season 3. It's on YouTube. The second Roy Rogers special, guest starring Roy Rogers, of course. And let me get to my cue mark. Here it is. All right, they're on a train. God dang it, there's an ad. They're on a train, and these diamond rustlers, diamond thieves, have put diamonds in the hooves of horses. Let me play this for you. Here we go. Anyway, here comes on the train, there's some Western legends. And here they come, and Howie, played by Doug Barr, of course, is amazed at the talent that's on the train. These guys are playing themselves.
On this? You betcha. Hey, John, how you doing?
Wow. It's Peter Breck, John Russell, Jocko Mahoney, three of my all-time favorite Western stars. I grew up watching those guys.
Yeah, well, control yourself, kid.
Hey, Roy! Hey, fellas! Is it true what I hear? Someone tried to kidnap Trigger?
Roy, that is about the lowest.
Oh, it's all been taken care of, fellas.
You can always count on us, Roy.
Thank you. Colt, you old son of a gun, you gonna do Roy's rodeo again?
Well, you can't turn him down. You all know Dusty Rogers, but I want you to meet my cousin, Howie Munson.
Howdy, Howie.
Hi, Big Valley,
Howie.
the lawman,
Howie.
the range rider. I've been watching you fellas since I was 5 or 6 years old. Oh.
It's nice to be remembered, Howie.
Remember, those viewing experiences helped shape my life. They were the impetus, in fact, for my getting into stunt work in the first place.
Well, son, I hear you're doing a fine job.
Thank you.
Fellas, Howie just told me the same thing.
Hey, Roy, I got something back in my room. I'll get it for you.
All right.
Yeah, he's gonna go take his pulse.
And there comes Jody Banks, Heather Thomas. So the guy says, I'm going to take his pulse. That's Peter Breck, who was one of the stars of The Big Valley, who had worked with Lee for years and years in the 1960s, the mid to late 1960s on that show for 4 seasons. I'm going to play a quick 30-second clip from The Wizard. Right after Fall Guy ended, as I mentioned at the top of the pod blast, Doug bounced back strong without skipping a beat in this show. And I'm going to play a little quick promo for The Wizard. And the star, who was a dwarf, the co-star along with Doug, was a gentleman from Time Bandits that we talked about. And what Doug didn't mention, and I'm glad he didn't, I'll mention this, it's sad. On May 2nd, 1990, he took his own life with a gun in the desert. It's really, he had bouts with depression, reportedly, and he took his own life. It's very sad. Not to bring the show down, but let me play a CBS promo clip for The Wizard.
Simon's mysterious past is revealed.
I owe it all to you.
As he embarks on the adventure of a lifetime.
Where are we going? A long way.
But will it be his last? The Wizard, Tuesday on
CBS. See how brief that is? Now, I'm going to play just a little bit of the very first episode of The Wizard, just so you can hear how the opening went, and then we'll move on to something else. Here we are. The Wizard, CBS. Fall 1986. Let's go back in time. Fran Ryan was in the cast. You know that face. She was an older woman. She was like always old in the TV shows. That's how the theme went, though. So that was the theme to The Wizard on CBS. Now I'm going to play a little design. Hey, it's got some Facebook comments coming in I want to read here. James Install, who has a great show on St. Louis radio, called Geek to Me Radio every Sunday night at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central Mountain Time. He says, love The Fall Guy. That was such a cool house. The Fall Guy is one of those 80s series that still holds up very well, and I agree. It does. He even had a car phone early on. I didn't get to mention this with Doug, but what I like about Nick Thiel, who was heading the scripts of Fall Guy early on, there were devices in the truck that got forgotten about. Like there was a secret compartment in the truck that could house a full person, which they remembered for season 3 and the season 4 episode where a pretty girl was hiding in there unbeknownst to Colt. He's in San Francisco, an episode called The San Francisco Caper, and he's jumping things. She's going, ow, ow. She hid in the compartment, and there was a hydraulically activated device that would propel Colt over walls, like the $6 Million Man, but without the bionics, and Doug Barr's Howie. And they forgot about that. It was a cool little device, and he had a car phone. This is what it relates to. So maybe think about that, is what James Enstall said about not being dated. He had a car phone, which was forgotten about after season 1. James Enstall says, great interview. Thank you, James. It's all Doug, not me. And Amy Coley says, very amazing interview. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate you watching out there live. Now, let's see. Let's play a couple clips from Designing Women. No groans, please. These are great scenes, and they're brief. I'm just going to play 3 quick scenes of Doug Barr in Designing Women. And then we'll move on to something else. Just quick recap. And I'm going to play that commercial by Menon that Doug did. And he speaks in it. He's towards the end of the commercial. All right, here is a clip from Designing Women with Doug.
Excuse me?
There's Doug. Yes. He's in a uniform. Air Force.
Your name from a friend of my mother's.
Uniform.
You guys, I can't believe you did this so fast. And not even my birthday.
Gene Smart.
Charlene, we didn't.
You're an actor, aren't you? Suzanne, I bet this is a friend of yours. I gotta say, though, not bad on the costume. Where'd you rent it?
I think there's a little misunderstanding.
Charlene, for heaven's sake. There's no misunderstanding. You guys are unbelievable. Okay, where are we going to dinner?
I give. You tell me.
Okay, how about the old Ritz-Carlton? And we can eat on the balcony and dance afterwards, you know, kind of like
High maintenance.
WW2.
Colonel Stillfield, I want to apologize for this.
Dixie
Listen,
Carter
no
speaking.
Apology necessary. Let me just get a time here. Say 8 o'clock?
Fine.
And a name to go with it?
As if he didn't know. Charlene. I'll write down the address for you.
Great. Well, I guess the only other thing I came in for was about this project. You see, my father, who was an Army general, passed away recently. I'm sorry, I still get a little emotional.
Oh, come on, I said I'd go. You don't have to make up a big story.
I'm deeply sorry. She's off her medication.
Anyway, we've collected a pretty tidy sum in donations to refurbish a patient lounge at the VA hospital in his memory. It's not a very big job, but we'd like to make it special.
Happy birthday to me.
Clip 1 of 3, and I'm going to play another and then get to that commercial. This is titled, I Want You to Be My Girl. And they wound up getting married. Here we go. So Doug's working on his plane. His character is into aviation. It's kind of corny from a guy's perspectives, but there's ladies out there that might dig this. I'm talking over the song in case I get dinged or flagged. He turns around, sees Gene Smart's character.
What's the matter?
You just look so beautiful.
My favorite. That was sweet.
Charlene, I want to explain some things.
I talked to Julie.
You did?
Yeah, you don't think I came all the way out here just because you told me you loved me, do you?
I'd like to tell you about Nancy. I'd like for you to know her.
I want to.
See, I never expected to fall in love again. Then you came along and you made me feel so good and guilty, even ashamed.
No one would believe this, but you're the first man I've ever completely trusted.
Come here.
They hug, they embrace.
Listen to me. I'll never let you down again. I want to take care of you. I want you to be my girl. I want to know every inch of you, and when I'm done, I want to start all over again. Just say you'll give me a chance.
I've missed you so.
Aww.
Can I have this dance?
I thought we were going flying.
The weather's turned on us. How do you feel about an indoor picnic? I brought a blanket.
You wouldn't be trying to seduce me now, would you?
Hey, I don't care if it's standing up or lying down.
They're dancing.
Just so you're next to me. It's for 50 years.
Bill,
Slow dancing.
I love you too.
There's been others before me.
Now they kiss. End of scene. End of the episode, too. So, last final clip, and I'm going to play that commercial. Let's see. Get this. Let me see how long this is for you guys. Okay, this is brief. This is just a couple minutes. I'm going to play it. Equal time.
I was just looking for Bill.
Oh, that's all right, Charlene. Dinner's not for another hour. Why don't you come and sit a moment?
Everything looks so beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, shoot.
You know, sometimes I like to slip in here after everything's all set and just look at it. I love to see everything in place. You know, when Bill's father was alive and Bill lived here with his sisters, we used to dress for dinner every Sunday night. It was a tradition.
My family has traditions too, you know. Like holding hands, always say grace. eating ice cream out of the front porch. Stuff like that. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I love your son with all my heart. I'll do anything to make him happy. But as much as I want to fit into his family, I'm just as proud of the one that I come from.
Wow. Don't you two look pretty? Mother, you don't mind if I kiss my fiancée, do you?
I don't mind.
Bill.
You know, Charlene begged me to stay in her room last night. But I was strong. I said, no way. I promised Mother and Aunt Phoebe I'd save myself for the wedding.
Charlie, are you sure you want to put up with a man like this?
No, not any longer than the next 50 or 60 years.
I told you she was cheap.
Maybe I will thank you not to be a jackass to my new daughter-in-law.
You know, I think she's beginning to like you.
Think so?
Yeah, I do.
What would you do if she didn't?
Elope.
You know, your Aunt Phoebe says you had family came over on the Mayflower.
Oh, yeah? What'd you say?
I told her I had family on Noah's Ark.
You didn't say that.
No, but I might. You Bill?
Yeah.
We're getting married.
Hey, Charlene. Oh. I know.
End of scene, end of episode. All right, so there's some equal time with designing women. Final thing. Doug Barr. In a 1980 by Menon commercial. This is only 30 seconds long, folks. Let's listen to this commercial. Vintage commercial. He's at the very end of it.
Ned Parker, what do you wear when you want to feel like $1,000,000?
My lucky hat?
That's not him.
And my millionaire, for minute.
John Meade, what do you wear when you want to feel like $1,000,000?
My favorite tweed jacket and my millionaire from Menon.
Wear Millionaire Cologne. So rich, so masculine, you feel like $1,000,000. Paul Marini, what do you wear it with?
You have to ask.
Make him feel like $1,000,000 this holiday. Give Millionaire gift sets by Menon.
That was him at the end. By Menon. Now, it's time for the fake rant of the week in your nostalgic pod blast. 4 letters. USPS. What does that stand for? The United States Postal Service, obviously. Okay, so I'm shipping boxes with prepaid shipping labels, and there's no one else in the post office besides me and the postal clerk in this particular post office that I'm in. I need a paper receipt for these items I'm shipping. Well, the clerk tells me, instead of saying, "May I help you?" says, "Sir, you have a prepaid label. You need to use the kiosk out there." Out where, I ask. And she points to another room, and I say, "Ma'am, I need a receipt. Would you please just accept my packages?" And she goes, "Come with me. I'll show you how to use the kiosk." So she shows me how to use the machine and instructs me to dump my packages into this box that looks like it's been pried open with a crowbar. I'm not kidding. The base of the door of the box, at the very base, there's a door where a postal worker would insert a key and take out the contents. Well, it looks loose. It's been pried open in this. It's a whole nother room. I don't see any cameras anywhere. It's completely unsecure. I tell her nicely, honestly, I'm not sugarcoating. I said, "I'm not putting my packages in there." I mean, some of my friends, this is honest to goodness truth, have had their mail disappear. There's been, in the Atlanta area, theft of mailboxes that are outside in the parking lot or in unsecure areas. And honest to goodness, this box has been pried open at the base. I'm not making it up. So it's damaged and unsecure. Well, she's doing the kiosk thing, and she prints a receipt for me, which I need, and tells me, I said, "Ma'am, I'll put my package there." She goes, "Baby, I'll take your packages," which was nice. So she takes my packages, and ultimately, truth be told, the packages did arrive at their destination. But I don't know if they would have if I'd put them in that box that she originally wanted me to do. So I'm grateful that she took my packages, but I felt like I was playing Russian shipping roulette with this kiosk. I'm tired of kiosks. At restaurants, a kiosk can't process cash or coupons. I'm a frugal son of a bee. Kiosks are like the new handicap parking space. Hear me clearly. We need handicap parking spaces. We do. But there's far too many of them than are needed. That's just a fact. In reality, when parking is sparse, there'll be in a movie theater. Well, I can understand a movie theater. At a grocery store, there'll be 30 handicap spots, and none of them are being used. I don't know. Kiosks are a pain in the rear, and every time I try to use one when I'm trying to pay cash, eventually someone says, "Oh, here, I'll help you over here." Yeah, just ultimately, kiosks, they serve no purpose other than to replace a paying human being earning a wage. And that's my fake rant of the week, although it's based in reality. Item. This post in the Nostalgic Podblast Facebook group reached over 150,000 people, according to Facebook. It was a post about the debut of BJ and the Bear. I'm going back in time a little bit because this is from a few days ago, but I just want to go over some notes with you about BJ and the Bear. This post went crazy in a good way. Happy debut day to another Glenn A. Larson show titled BJ and the Bear, which became a weekly 1-hour action comedy series over 43 years ago on NBC. Back on Saturday, February 10th, 1979 at 9 p.m. Before BJ and the Bear was a weekly series, it was a movie of the week titled The Foundlings, which aired on Wednesday, October 4th, 1978. That was before Dukes of Hazzard. Greg Evigan starred as independent trucker and Vietnam veteran Billy Joe McKay. Next to McKay, in the cab of his red and white Kenworth K100 semi-truck, was a chimpanzee named Bear, who was named after Bear Bryant, the famed football coach for the University of Alabama. 44 one-hour episodes were filmed, along with one 2-hour episode produced during 3 television seasons. Unlike what it says online, this is the truth. The last time BJ and the Bear aired in prime time on NBC was on Saturday, August 1st, 1981 at 9 p.m. That was a rerun, but still, it counts. Online, anywhere you look at episode guides online for BJ and the Bear, it says it was in May of 81, the last time that BJ and the Bear aired in prime time. That's not true. Breaking news. Isn't this just earth-shattering information? But I want to set the record straight. August 1st, 1981 at 9 p.m. was the last time the BJ and the Bear aired on NBC in prime time. That was a Saturday night. Now, a spin-off show titled The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo, later retitled and retooled Lobo, taking place in Atlanta, Georgia, in the 1980-81 season, also aired on NBC. Glenn A. Larson and Christopher Crowe created the show BJ and the Bear, which was loosely based on the big screen hits Smokey and the Bandit, Convoy, and Every Which Way But Loose. As of this writing, BJ and the Bear has never been released on home video in any format, whether it's VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, nothing. None of it. And it's never been on a streaming service, and it's never even aired on a classic TV digital network like MeTV, Antenna TV, or Cozy TV, which would be the most logical diginet to air BJ and the Bear because it was a universal NBC show. And I love truck drivers. They keep moving the world in terms of commerce and literally everything that everyone consumes, as others have said, which is why they should be respected for their essential contributions to society. TV shows that deal with the trucking industry are rare. They had Moving On back in the 70s, and then BJ and the Bear after that. Ironically, the guy that played Sheriff Lobo was in Moving On, Claude Akins, a great dramatic actor as well as comedic actor. And Mills Watson was in Sheriff Lobo, who mailed me an autographed picture. He doesn't do any interviews of any kind, never has, and apparently never will. He doesn't want to fool with it in print or on television or podcast, radio show, nothing, none of it. And you won't find any. He's a rare dude, but a nice man. He sent me an autographed picture for free, which was cool. Now, this is a problem. There was an awful fire at Universal Studios in California in 2008 in which tons of music was destroyed. Look up on Google or your search engine of choice, 2008 Universal Studios fire. And what I read is that the 35 millimeter film masters of BJ and the Bear were consumed by the flames of that fire. Now, what still should exist are the old videos of BJ and the Bear for rerun syndication, which could be enhanced. They won't be as good as remastering them from the 35 millimeter masters, but I would think that a company like Shout Factory DVD, which specializes in restoring music, like for instance, don't let me have a brain toot. That movie with Sly Stallone, Nighthawks, that's it. Nighthawks with Billy D. Williams, Lindsay Wagner, Sly Stallone, and Rutger Hauer was released on home video, but they took out the Rolling Stones hit Brown Sugar for home video. Well, Shout Factory released it on Blu-ray, I think in 2016, and restored it. They're great like that. And they released Room 222, a show that lasted for 5 seasons I've talked about in the Podblast, on DVD, but they had to use 16 millimeter masters because they couldn't find the 35 millimeter. They found like 2 episodes with the 35 millimeter that looked like they were shot yesterday. The rest were obviously from film. Like, not even good prints. They had like faded color. My prints of Fall Guy are awesome, by the way. They have perfect color. Fuji color prints. That's another story. I digress again. So I think that Shout Factory would be the ones for the fans to approach. And there's a huge market for BJ and the Bear. I'm going to play a clip of BJ and the Bear right now. Then we'll move on to a couple other things as we wind down this edition of the Nostalgic Podblast. Here's a clip from my collection of BJ and the Bear, from my rare video collection. And let's just listen to this. What's cool is the opening credits of BJ and the Bear. The star, Greg Evigan, sang it, and he can sing really well. But online, you don't hear the sound effects. You don't hear some of the dialogue. Listen to this. Here's the complete
He's
thing.
going to have to go into isolation immediately for blood tests.
Wait. You're gonna be a fur coat for a midget.
Why would Dr. Niven deliberately misdiagnose that animal's condition?
Do you have any idea what price a live primate in such excellent condition can bring?
But we are talking murder. Your chimpanzee, Mr. McKay, died last night.
When I lived in St. Paul, I summered out the west and then I left in the fall. I chased down the spring through the month of May and run for a song till I captured today. Hey man, what's your complaint today, huh? What's the matter, you don't like my singing? That's your favorite part coming up. This is it. And I'll never leave you, even if I could. I don't want to ever be. Hey, you all right? Hey, you okay?
What's your complaint today? He says. So that is an episode titled Bear Bondage. I recorded way back in 1995. I recorded the series off WWOR, Secaucus, New Jersey. The last time BJ and the Bear aired in reruns was way back then in 1995. Man, that was a long time ago. So that's from my episode, and you could hear some of the dialogue that is missing from the YouTube BJ and the Bear, which is like someone took the music only, which is released on TV's Greatest Hits on compact disc. I think it's like volume 6 or something of that series that MTV originally released. And you don't hear that, yes, what I'm going to do, boy, what I'm going to do, Bear, I'm going to teach you how to sing. How'd you like that, kid? All right. I don't know. I like that dialogue and that sound effect where he's driving that semi-rig through a wall. Boom! Anyway, sorry. So, item. We're moving on now. Disney does not yet own BJ and the Bear. Hello Kitty, Black History Month, Harry Potter books, movies, and its merchandising, or Batman. Not yet. Disney's taken over the world, and they do a good job with their products. I'm not trying to sound negative, but they seem to absorb everything I love. Fall Guy, 20th Century Fox, Marvel comic books. These are Marvel comic books you see behind me. If you're listening at fistfulofradio.com, I direct you to the Nostalgic Podblast YouTube channel or Facebook group, which is rapidly growing. Thank you very much. People mainly care about nostalgia, not me. I get it. But I want to have, moving forward, a lot of guests, and I have some lined up that are going to blow your mind. Like Doug Barr. Doug Barr was incredible. So articulate, so kind. And I thought that was just a really enlightening interview. I learned a lot, and I thought I knew a lot, but I learned a lot from Doug. And man, and honestly, when I tried to make it as an actor, and look, I'm not good looking, I'm not tall. The cards were stacked against me, and there's no talent. But I got to do some cool things, like tarring and feathering a bootlegger and Lawless, and I did get some speaking parts down the line and stuff, but nowhere near the level of a Doug Barr. So that's cool to hear his story. Now, let's move on. As we wind down the show, I have a few more things to go over. Nothing that will embarrass Doug Barr. I'm very careful not to talk about anything that that he would take issue with, since he was gracious enough to come on my show, the Nostalgic Podblast. It's time for a regular feature.
This is Jeopardy!
Time for the Jeopardy update. So they had the first primetime college tournament hosted by Mayim Bialik, and it was awesome. And there was a guy, I'm in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia area, there was a young man representing Kennesaw State University who made it to the finals. And I thought they did a great job. And there's a couple things that kind of tickled me. One of the students was named Chance. And not to make this about me, my name used to be Novel. Now you got Chance the Rapper. You've got all these chances out there. But once upon a time, it was a rare name. I'm old. And it's always been a trip to hear people say Chance. I know it's not me. I'm not delusional. I'm not crazy. Believe me, I'm not crazy. But it still kind of makes you do a double take when you hear someone say the word chance in a line of dialogue or a song or anything. And I would never edit. That'd be so stupid to edit and just... What an unwarranted ego I would have to do that. Won't do that. But I do want to play just a quick clip of Mayim calling on Chance. I thought this was interesting. In Jeopardy, in the tournament. Where did I put that clip? Here it is.
Chance.
Let's go Game Show 1000.
This three-time NBA champion hosts The Cube. Chance.
Who's Dwayne Wade?
That's him.
800 Game Show hosts.
After Saturday Night Live, she began hosting Supermarket Sweep. That's Leslie Jones. Chance.
Let's go pass fail 1,000.
A Cold War era novel and movie popularized this term for a device that's supposed to prevent unanticipated disaster. What is fail-safe? Chance.
Okay, peaks and valleys 1,000.
Chance. And let me. This tickled me. Okay, I like how Mayim, and I don't have a crush on her. This sounds like I do. I think she does a fine job, but she interjects a lot of humor and subtle humor. And listen to this. I like how she added, and I think this was an ad lib. In this question, it's about the Transformers. We're going to talk about the Transformers a little bit later in the show, very briefly. But I like how she added in this little line. Listen to this. This is very brief. This is like 10 seconds here.
That's it.
Toy Story's 400, please.
These toys that became a TV and movie franchise sprang from Japanese toy lines called Diaclone and Microchange. Megan.
What is Transformers?
More than meets the eye, that's correct.
Like I said, more than meets the eye. That's correct. You had to see it. I mean, it was funny. She did like a visual thing. Anyway, but still, you get it when you hear it. That's all I got to say about Jeopardy, except presently Ken Jennings is hosting it, and I prefer Mayim to Ken Jennings. That's just my personal preference because I think she adds a lot of humor into it. Now, usually I have a question of the week. Gonna skip it. I want to move on. I don't want this to be a super long pod blast. We'll get to it. I may do a show Sunday, and we'll get to it then. But I have just to catch up a couple notable birthdays. This isn't going to go on and on, but I have some notable ones that have come and gone in present time. Right now, I better not say it. It'll date the show. It's late February 2022. It's almost March. So I'm going to go back in time a little bit here. I don't have many clips here. I forgot to pull them. I was getting time crunched, and I didn't want to miss Doug Barr's urgent call. To me, it was urgent, calling in to be interviewed. But happy 65th birthday to Vanna White, who was born Vanna Marie Roysich. White is her stepfather's last name. But Vanna was born on Monday, February 18th, 1957 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. A Southern gal. After graduating from high school, White moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm at, where she was a student at the Atlanta School for Fashion and Design. Vanna worked as a model and eventually moved to Los Angeles, California, way back in 1979 to pursue an acting career. In 1982, over thousands of women, she won the gig that she holds to this very day as letter turner, now letter toucher, because it's a LED screen, on Wheel of Fortune. I guess it's like a giant kiosk, isn't it? And that big letterboard. I don't like kiosks. So, happy birthday, Vanna White. No clip. Happy 68th birthday to John Travolta, who was born on Thursday, February 18th, 1954 in Englewood, New Jersey. John Travolta was the youngest of 6 siblings. Of course, television made likable John Travolta a household name as a sweat hog on Welcome Back, Kotter for 4 seasons on ABC TV between Tuesday, September 9th, 1975 and the winter of 1978 when he left the show to continue to make movies. A year after Welcome Back, Kotter premiered, a TV movie which aired on Friday, November 12th, 1976, titled The Boy in the Plastic Bubble, brought acclaim to John Travolta and love as he began a romance with his co-star Diana Hyland, who was playing his mother in that telefilm. Now, on a serious note, tragedy struck when Diana Hyland, who had already begun filming episodes of 8 is Enough at that time as the Bradford family's mother, Joan, she passed away of cancer, reportedly in the arms of John Travolta, back on Sunday, March 27th, 1977. Carrie, the first big Stephen King movie in 1976, was John Travolta's first high-profile theatrical movie before, a year later, Saturday Night Fever was released in 1977, which blew up his acting career in a good way. Additional big screen success came Travolta's way with the release of Grease in 1978 and Urban Cowboy in 1980, back in the day. Now, what was interesting relating to Welcome Back, Kotter is, if you have an astute eye, look for this. If you happen to see Welcome Back, Kotter, this is kind of specific, but if you watch in the I think it would be season 3. Yeah, during season 3 of Welcome Back, Kotter, and you have to have an episode guide. My gosh, how is the average person going to know? The average viewer supposed to know it's a season 3 episode. I guess on the screen, on the guide, if you have like a modern guide or a DVR, even if you don't have a DVR, it usually will say these days the episode season and episode number. But look for season 3. You can tell he's wearing an obvious wig because his long locks, he almost had Farrah Fawcett type hair, John Travolta did back in those days. He had to get it cut short for Grease, which was set in the late 1950s. And so he's wearing an obvious wig. You can really tell it's a wig in season 3 of Welcome Back, Kotter. Anyway, just a little anecdote. So let's flash forward to 1994 when the box office smash hit Pulp Fiction by writer-director Quentin Tarantino revived Travolta as a bankable movie star. John Travolta is a pilot and a fan of aviation going way back. He got his license back in 1977. And someone on Facebook posted a photo, like a Polaroid shot, of John Travolta getting his license. Now, sadly, this got to get serious here. Personal pain returned to John Travolta in 2009 when he lost his son, Jet. And then again in 2020 when his wife, the beautiful Kelly Preston, passed away. Through it all, John Travolta survives and is now 68 years of age. February 19th, we have to acknowledge another debut on television. Happy debut day to this show. Can you say socks? I knew that you could. That's a terrible impression of this man. 54 years ago, on Monday, February 19th, 1968, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood made its national television debut on NET, N-E-T, which stood for the National Education Television Network. Mild-mannered, sweater-wearing Fred Rogers from Latrobe, Pennsylvania, was the host of a cast of characters. The show was produced at the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania public TV station WQED. ED, like erectile dysfunction? I don't have that. No, believe me, I'm in overdrive, but WQED. The toddler fodder, as I call it, ended on Friday, August 31st, 2001. It's a long run, 1968 to 2001. And sadly, Fred Rogers passed away in Pittsburgh, PA on Thursday, February 27th, 2003, at the age of 74. The man really made a difference. He was a gentleman. I think, in all seriousness, you need more programs and more men like Fred Rogers. Won't you be, please, won't you be my neighbor? Rest in peace, Fred Rogers. Oh, I forgot to pull a clip. Happy 82nd birthday to the great legendary Motown star, Smokey Robinson. And they did a Fall Guy. I meant to mention this with Doug, but they did a Motown tribute with the Temptations, it was the Four Tops, the Temptations, and LaToya Jackson. It was really, really great with the original music. Anyway, I digress. So, happy 82nd birthday to the legendary Motown star, Smokey Robinson. In addition to being the frontman for the Miracles, Robinson began a successful solo music career in 1973 with the release of his album titled Smokey. And honestly, the man never ages. Like Dick Clark didn't for years when he was still alive. Dick Clark looked the same for a long time. Same, to me, in my opinion, as Smokey Robinson. And Smokey was born back on Monday, February 19th, 1940 in Detroit, Michigan. He has a smooth voice. So that's a wrap on birthdays as we wind down this edition of the Nostalgic Podblast. Time for the nostalgic treat of the week. Now, you're going to curse me when I play this because some of you, it'll be hard to get this out of your head, this jingle. And it's right here. This was a very successful television ad campaign.
When it says Libby's, Libby's, Libby's on the label, 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 nothing's better, better, better on your table, 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 'cause we think you'll agree. It's hard to find a canned vegetable that's
younger, tender, rounder, sweeter.
Redder, moister, brighter, crisper.
On the Libby's label is a note that says, we challenge you to find a better can of vegetables. Because we think you'll agree, it's hard to find one that's
younger, tender, rounder, sweeter, redder, moister, brighter, crisper, yum.
Libby's, Libby's, Libby's on the label, label, label. It is good, good, good on the table, table, table. I'm going to play another quick commercial from 1971. This has Robbie Rist in it. You know who that is? Some of you will, most of you won't. He's best known as playing Cousin Oliver in the final season of the Brady Bunch. Some say he was the death knell for the Brady Bunch. I disagree. But here's a 1971 commercial for Libby's. Listen to this. It's from film. There's Robbie Rist.
When it says Libby's, Libby's, Libby's on the label, 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 you will like it, like it, like it on your table, table, table.
Libby's doesn't just call their hash home style. They make it that way, with big, lean chunks of corned beef, potatoes, and special seasonings hash lovers love. Like all Libby's canned meats. Definitely worth singing about.
You will like it, like it, like it.
You like Libby's.
So, Libby's was an American company that produced canned food and beverages. The firm was established in 1869 in Chicago, Illinois. The Libby's trademark is currently owned by Libby's Brand Holding, based in Geneva, Switzerland, and is licensed to several companies around the world, including Nestle, the chocolate company, of course, Nestle, and Conagra brands. And Conagra owns everything. I think they own Chunky Soup. Talked about that company before, and they absorbed the Hungry Man TV dinners and the like. But Libby's was founded as Libby McNeil and Libby in Chicago, Illinois by Archibald McNeil and the brothers Arthur and Charles Libby. The business began with a canned meat product, beef in brine or corned beef. The product became well known when the company began to package the meat in a trapezoid-shaped can starting in 1875. By 1880, it had 1,500 employees based in Chicago. Libby's Pork and Beans was released in 1905, and by the middle of the 1930s, I guess during the Depression era, Libby's had about 9,000 employees only in the Chicago area. Its annual sales surpassed $100 million during the 1940s. Wow, that's a lot. Before and after World War II, Libby's had canned operations outside the United States, in Belgium and France, at Leer in northern Germany, and in the United Kingdom. Libby, McNeil, and Libby was acquired by Nestle in 1970. In the 1970s, Libbyland brand frozen dinners were marketed towards children using a mascot called Libby the Kid. Like Billy the Kid, I guess. Can anyone corroborate that in the audience? I don't remember Libby the Kid. Nestle introduced Juicy Juice in 1977, and it was branded under the Libby's name. I didn't know Juicy Juice had been around that long. Dang. See, I learned something from this show. In 2006, Nestle began to market Juicy Juice. See, I remember having a comeback in 2006. Actually, before that, like in the early 2000s. Anyway, in 2006, Nestle began to market Juicy Juice. In 2014, well, they took it over from Libby's. The Juicy Juice brand and business was sold by Nestle to Harvest Hill Beverage Company, a portfolio company of Brynwood Partners. In 1982, Libby's canned vegetable business was acquired by S.S. Pierce Company, now Seneca Foods, and its canned fruits business was acquired by California Canners and Growers, CalCan. In 1984, CalCan, sounds like a dog food, doesn't it, merged with Tri-Valley Growers. In 2000, In the year 2000. Conan O'Brien reference there. International Home Foods was acquired by ConAgra. The empire, they're like the Disney of canned foods. ConAgra and frozen foods. They're taking over. I just lost my place, folks. I'll be honest with you. All right, so Niagara Trading Company now. All right. In the year 2000, Tri-Valley Growers went bankrupt, and the bulk of its operations, including the rights to the Libby's canned fruit business, was acquired by Signature Fruit, LLC in 2001. A terrible year. In 2006, Seneca Foods acquired Signature Fruit. Niagara Trading Company, now NTC Marketing, Inc., acquired a long-term license for the Libby's name for canned pineapple and juices in 1983. Are you bored yet? I'm starting to get bored with this. I'm almost done with this write-up. In 1998, Libby's canned meat business was sold by Nestle to International Home Foods. In the year 2000, International Home Foods was acquired by ConAgra. The empire, the evil empire of canned and frozen foods. In 2006, Nestle sold the Libby's trademark to a Swiss entity that became known as Libby's Brand Holding. We're in the home stretch of this story, folks. In November 2009, Libby's announced that because of poor weather on its Illinois pumpkin farms and a depleted back stock, a canned pumpkin shortage was likely as Thanksgiving approached. Libby's accounts for the vast majority of canned pumpkin production in the United States, and the shortfall prompted Libby's to establish farms in multiple states as a hedge against another mass shortage like the one that happened in 2009. In 2010, Walton and Post Inc. acquired a long-term license for the Libby's trademark for several items, including nectars, like Nectar of the Gods, creamers, and prepared meals. In 2015, PT Mills PLC acquired the Libby's trademark license for preserved foods in the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Portugal, with the exceptions of corned beef, pumpkin, and fruit juices. The trademark license for fruit juice in the UK are held by Refresco, like refreshing, Refresco. Libby's trademark is licensed in the Canary Islands, Spain, and Portugal. There you go. So that was my nostalgic treat of the week. Now for the nostalgic toy of the week. I love this. I think a lot of people that are younger than me are going to dig this segment as we wind down the pod blast. I say that we are winding it down. This is almost over, I assure you. But this is some good audio here. Let me get this going for you. I love this clip. The coffee's making me nuts, folks. Okay, hang on. And I want to show some more stills of Doug Barr from my collection. I've been remiss. I want to show more. If you're listening at fistfulofradio.com, just head to the YouTube channel, The Nostalgic Podblast. You'll see Doug Barr interview. I'm going to put a picture of him up there. All right, let's listen to this. The nostalgic toy of the week. What could it be? This is from a home video release of it. Just think, it's a cartoon series. A great series of toys in the 80s came from this show. You're probably like, what the hell? I just heard several classic cartoons in that piece. Talking about Transformers. That's the nostalgic toy of the week. Transformers is a media franchise produced by the American toy company Hasbro and Japanese toy company Takara Tomy. It follows the battles of sentient, living, autonomous robots, often called the Autobots, and the Decepticons, who can transform into other forms such as vehicles and animals. Telling you, the Space Giants back in 1966 were the first Transformer robots into rockets. They were the first Transformers, gold or silver or GAM. They just were. Look it up. It was known as, and I always plug the Space Giants because I love it. In fact, I'm going to play real quick, I'm digressing, a clip of Rodak talking about how he started the coronavirus. Oh, was that a buzzword? Let me play. I think this is it. Let's see.
Out of the way. You foolish earthlings. Do you think you can cure this disease? Why, it took me years using the finest equipment to discover it. You are helpless and will be forced to give me what I want. By the time you have found a cure, the earth will be mine to do with as I please. All over your world, thousands of victims are suffering, and there is nothing you can do about it. Tomorrow, thousands more will fall victim to my monster Renotis, a monster that still hasn't used all of its weapons. Listen to me, earthlings. Surrender your world, and I shall send Renotis away. If you don't surrender, everyone on Earth will become a victim. Don't think that your medical research unit will find a cure. Why, with all the medical knowledge you earthlings possess, you can't even find a cure for the common cold.
What an ass. That was the villain Rodak, a space alien that wants to conquer the Earth and add it to his collection of planets. Kind of like Galactus in the comic books. Magma Taishi was the original Tokyo name for that show. Magma Taishi Ambassador Magma. And it was first imported in 1972 before Ted Turner picked it up as the Space Avenger. And then it was named the Space Giants in 1977 by Lakeside TV that distributed it. But we're talking about the Transformers now. The brand of Transformers, it's a franchise that encompasses toys, animation, comic books, video games, and of course, big screen movies. As of 2011, the Transformers generated more than $25 billion in revenue. $25 billion in revenue, making it one of the highest grossing media franchises of all time. The franchise began in 1984 with the Transformers toy line, comprising transforming mecha toys from Takara's Diaclone and Microchange toy lines rebranded for Western markets. All came from Japan. The term Generation 1 covers both the animated television series The Transformers and the comic book series of the same name, which are further divided into Japanese, British, and Canadian spin-offs, respectively. Sequels followed, such as Generation 2, comic book, and Beast Wars TV series, which became its own mini-universe. Generation 1 characters of the Transformers underwent 2 reboots, with Dreamwave in 2001 and IDW Publishing in 2005, with a third starting in 2019. There have been other incarnations of the Transformers of the story, based on different toy lines during and after the 20th century. The first was Robots in Disguise series, followed by 3 shows, Armada, Energon, and Cybertron, that constitute a single universe called the Unicron Trilogy. Has nothing to do with the horse. The Unicron Trilogy. I know people are slapping me out there that are Transformers fans. A live-action film series started in 2007 starring Shia LaBeouf and a gorgeous, gorgeous lady, Brian Austin Green's ex, Fox, Megan Fox. And again, it was distinct from the previous incarnations of the Transformers. While the Transformers animated series merged concepts from the G1 continuity, the 2007 live-action film, and the Unicron Trilogy. For most of the 2010s, in an attempt to mitigate the wave of reboots, the aligned continuity was established. In 2018, Transformers Cyberverse debuted, once again distinct from the previous incarnations. I'll stop there, but I'm going to play a clip of the theme to the Transformers. What you just heard at the beginning, why you heard the reason you heard G.I. Joe and Jim, I had this on video. I'm a big video collector, and Rhino VHS put together a VHS compilation of Sid and Marty Krofft shows, right? And they had this little trailer that you just heard for those cartoons. I never bought those cartoons, but I just love the way that's edited. I love those songs. Even the Gem, I admit it, I love that theme song. So let me play the Transformers theme, and then we'll move on to something else. Where is it? I know I pulled it. Yeah, it's right here. Here's the G1 theme of the classic 1984 cartoon show.
More than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. The Transformers. Autobots in disguise. The Transformers. More than meets the eye. The Transformers.
I like that theme. It's probably going to be muted. By the way, if you're ever watching after the fact, after I'm live in the Facebook group and the sound goes out, always go to the YouTube channel. Typically, the audio will be complete there or on I always forget. I'm on Apple, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, although an initially separate and competing franchise started in 1983, Tonkas, as in the Tonka toys, the construction toys, GoBots, it became the intellectual property of Hasbro Toys after their buyout of Tonka in 1991. Subsequently, the universe depicted in the animated series Challenge of the GoBots and follow-up film GoBots Battle of the Rock Lords was retroactive. And it retroactively established as an alternate universe within the Transformers multiverse. By the way, how about that Doctor Strange 2 trailer? Pretty exciting stuff. It debuted during the Super Bowl of 2022 in February 2022, and it just looks amazing. I'm a big Marvel fan. Disney does Marvel right. They really, really do. I'm excited about it. That's what all these boxes are. They're of classic comic books in my vast comic book collection I'm proud to own. So, I guess I can wrap on we'll do a whole thing on Transformers later. I don't want to bore you guys with too much detail about the movies, but it's just what an empire the Transformers is. Generation 2, 1993 to 1995. We'll get to it another time. Now, this is literally the home stretch of this week's Podblast. I'm so grateful to Doug Barr and to the Retro Zest podcast for making it happen in part, on my behalf, inviting Doug to be a part of the Nostalgic Podblast. Thank you, Curtis. That was really cool. So I'm going to play, let's see in my notes here. Come on, you. I always screw this up. Yes, we shall. Shall we play a game for more games? Time for taglines. No clips in the interest of time, but I'm going to name again some movie taglines and you guess the movie. Here's just a few for you. Here's the tagline. It's a movie. Think of the title if you can. I'll pause so you can think, but here is the movie tagline. It's on the movie poster, in the advertising, on television, radio, back when they advertised movies on radio. I don't think they do anymore. Here's the tagline. The true story of a real fake. No, that's not the story of Chance Bartels, your humble host of the Nostalgic Podblast. It's a tagline of a movie. The true story of a real fake. Well, that was from the movie, the marketing of Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio. No clip. We're just going to play the game today. Tagline. From the brother of the director of Ghost. From the brother of the director of Ghost. That was Naked Gun, 33 1/3, which also had, of course, Priscilla Presley, whom Doug and I discussed briefly. She was in a Fall Guy episode from season 2 titled Manhunter. Tagline. Here's movie number 3. Tagline, work sucks. Hint, we talked about it last time on the Podblast, and I played a clip from this movie. Again, tagline, work sucks. The movie was Office Space from 1999. Jennifer Aniston, great comedy. Ron Livingston, love that movie. Moving on to number 4, and this relates to someone we talked about who guest starred in Fall Guy 6 times, including the pilot. Here's the tagline. Pretty obvious. He may be dead, but he's the life of the party. He may be dead, but he's the life of the party. Weekend at Bernie's. That was Terry Kaiser who played Bernie in that successful comedy series. Tagline, number 5. If at first you don't succeed, lower your standards. If at first you don't succeed, lower your standards. That was Tommy Boy from 1995 with the greatly missed Chris Farley and David Spade. What a great comedy duo they were. That's another Podblast we're going to do. Great comedy duos coming soon to the Nostalgic Podblast. And a lot of other great topics and guests. But that's a great, if you're in sales, like most of my career has been in sales, I love that movie. That's a good salesman's movie, especially Dan Aykroyd's character. Nobody's a better salesman than me, or whatever he's going through his plant. He's like, I'm the best salesman there is. He's really cocky and really funny in that movie, Dan Aykroyd. But I love Tommy Boy. And by the way, Howie Munson, to tie it all together, his character, played by Doug Barr, was one of my inspirations. I always have excelled and been very successful in sales. I shouldn't give this away. A lot of people say keep your secrets, but I don't care. His character, his enthusiasm, it's all fresh in my mind. Once you see these on Disney Plus or wherever they wind up streaming The Fall Guy, it's going to happen, I'm sure. I don't think it's just going to be shelved. You'll see his character was such a go-getter and so enthusiastic to want to succeed as a stuntman. And he was a good hunter when it came to bounty hunting, the job he did on the side with his cousin Colt Savers. Anyway, I digress. So that was from Tommy Boy. If at first you don't succeed, lower your standards. Tagline number 6 from this movie. Here's the tagline. Nice planet. We'll take it. It's not Rodak from the Space Giants. Nice planet. We'll take it. That was Mars Attacks. Mars Attacks. Now, here's one that will tick off a lot of men in the audience. Here's the tagline. Don't get mad. Get everything. Don't get mad. Get everything. That was the First Wives Club. Tagline number 8. This is a weird one. Here's the tagline. Man is the warmest place to hide. Man is the warmest place to hide. That was The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing, the remake with Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell, great movie. Now, I'll give you a hint. Doug Barr talked about working in Deadly Blessing when I asked him about it by Wes Craven. This is a Wes Craven movie. This is obvious. That's why I'm just going to give it away. It's a Wes Craven movie, one of the better Wes Craven horror movies. But I'm going to see Deadly Blessing. Now that he described it where he comes back as a ghost, that sounds interesting to me. It reminds me of the movie Ghost from mid-'85 with one of the stars of Night Court playing the ghost. He was like a Vietnam veteran, the ghost of a Vietnam vet that came back in the movie. Was it Ghost? I got to look that up because I don't want to put any misinformation out there. Anyway, if Nancy doesn't wake up screaming, she won't wake up at all. Nightmare on Elm Street with the great Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. Let me look this up on the fly before we sign off tonight. What the hell was that movie? House! It was House, the movie House. See, it came to me. I didn't even have to look it up, but let me see when it was released. The movie House. That was a cool movie with Oh God, I hate this. My laptop. We'll save it for another rant of the week. Oh God, not the movie house, not the TV show House about the doctor. Golly, I wanted to give you some info about House. I should feature that, and I will. Richard Mall, yeah. Richard Mall played the ghost in House, and William Catt was in it, better known as the greatest American hero, George Wendt from Cheers. Kay Lenz, who guest starred in The Fall Guy several times. That's a cool movie, House, from 1985. Let me see the release date. I'm just curious. God. You know, I can't. My laptop defaults. I need to fix this to MSN, and I prefer Google. And they did an update where it won't. It was from 1986, not 1985. See, they had bad information out there. It was released February 28th, 1986, with a budget of $3 million, and House made $22.1 million. Cool movie, really cool movie. I recommend. Good scary movie. So let's see. I think that's about it for this week. Let me see. Look at my little notes here that I wrote. I really did skimp. Oh, I want to just talk about real quick Doug Barr, wrapping it up as a writer. I'm going to mention some projects he wrote. Starting in 1986, The Wizard, and he mentioned that. He wrote an episode of The Wizard titled Seeing is Believing. And then he wrote Fade to Black, a TV movie. He wrote The Cover Girl Murders, another TV movie from 1993, same year as Fade to Black, also 1993. He wrote Temptation in 1994, Dead Badge in 1995, Conundrum, a TV movie from 1996, Taking a Chance on Love in 2009, no pun intended, Secrets of the Mountain, a TV movie from 2010. I think it was a Hallmark movie. And then Notes from the Heart Healer from 2012. And then, boy, there's a lot of directing credits. Most recently in 2017, he directed Emma Fielding Mysteries, an episode titled Sight Unseen, an Emma Fielding mystery. That's pretty cool. Before that, North Pole, Open for Christmas in 2015. He directed Jeannie Francis a couple times that I read. His best known is Laura from Luke and Laura, which had its 40th anniversary last year in 2021, November 2021. I think it was November 17th and 18th, 2021. How could I forget? General Hospital's Luke and Laura. And of course, Jeannie Francis has been married to number one on Star Trek The Next Generation, Jonathan Frakes, since 1983. But they're still together. Just like Doug Barr is with his lovely wife that we talked about, Claire. Let's see. So what else did he direct? Notes from the Heart Healer, Game Time, Tackling the Past, The Jensen Project, Secrets of the Mountain in 2010. He directed also Taking a Chance on Love. He wrote and directed that in 2009. To Be Fat Like Me in 2007. I could go on and on. I feel obligated to mention all these credits, but let me see what the first one was he directed. Dead Badge in 1995. Then he also directed Conundrum that he wrote. So cool. And he directed a bunch of Sweet Valley High episodes between 1994 and 1996. So a very prolific guy, a very multi-talented guy, Doug Barr. Did I just close out my notes? No. Okay. Well, I guess we're going to sign off. So again, big thanks to Doug Barr for being our very special guest, and to Curtis of the Retro Zest podcast. I'm going to say it a third time for extending my invitation to Doug to be interviewed, which he graciously accepted. And final plug, remember to subscribe to the Nostalgic Podblast on YouTube if you're listening at fistfulofradio.com. And please join our rapidly growing Facebook group, The Nostalgic Podblast. It's the most active thing on social media pertaining to this show. Have a great week. And I may do a show Sunday now that the Olympics and the Super Bowl are over. I know a lot of you probably don't give a flip about sports, but I do. I like everything pop culture. And let's sign off appropriately enough with the closing theme, if I can get it right, please, Lord, to The Fall Guy by Stu Phillips. Thanks for listening to the Nostalgic Podblast, everybody.
Fall Guy is a Glenn Larson production.